Just last week you called me. The way you're talking is driving me insane. Hello. Just last week you called me. The way you're talking is driving me insane. Hello. Hello. Even if we're hanging by a thread, what you said is spinning in my head, I just wanna pull you closer in this bed, take me back into your arms, and I'll never let you down. Let you, even if we're hanging by a thread, what you said is spinning in my head, I just wanna pull you closer in this bed, take me back into your arms, and I'll never let you down. Let you, even if we're hanging by a thread, what you said is spinning in my head, wanna pull you closer in this. Let you, even if we're hanging by a thread, what you said is spinning in my head, wanna pull you closer in this. Let you, even if we're hanging by a thread, what you said is spinning in my head,
Oh, especially when you angle this part down.
Good afternoon and good evening. Welcome to another Patch Note Show 6.1, I guess. Version 2, Part 2 is going to be here. And today is going to be all about the balance and changes going into the game. This is the one that a lot of you regular players have been looking forward to all year long. And to join me on this joyous occasion of every season, as always, is going to be Pompon, AJ, and Clumsy from the design team. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing all right. Been busy.
Yep.
And now we've got a big old pile of changes, some really cool stuff, and I'm excited to get into it.
So when we go over this, then let's just break down a few things. What are the overall goals you guys have for season 6? Like, generally, we come into a new season and go, this is what we're aiming for. And I feel like last year you kind of achieved what you set out to do.
Thank you. Season 5 was a big shift.
Yeah, but I just give you credit. I didn't mean to.
Yeah.
He's so nice, Andy, man. He's not savage at all. Season 5 was a big change for us as a team, and the way we go about balance and the way we communicate our goals and try to achieve them. We set out to a very few specific things like the conquest changes. We really wanted to focus on problems and solutions to problems. And we tried to make sure every single change was identified through a player perception type of perspective, to make sure we could understand why players would feel positively or negatively about a change.
So even if like a god was strong in our numbers wise, but people didn't like him or said it was bad, we tried to work around that sort of thing?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried to make, win rates matter a little less, ban rates matter a little more. Really look at the community feedback and look at popularity and ban rate to see what's getting played and make adjustments accordingly. And even if things may be strong, or we tried to not do so much where we just pull numbers and say, haha, we're right, because that doesn't really get us anywhere. And as far as a community. So we changed a lot of those goals this year, and it's been working really well. I think everyone's been pretty positive about balance this year.
Yeah, season 5 has been
Let's move on to season
well.
6 then. And what's the difference? What are you aiming for this year?
Well, I just want to mention we're going to continue with mostly that strategy.
Okay, cool.
Focusing on the perception and the feels of changes and a little bit less on the win rates. So absolutely, but of course we keep things within a reasonable, constrained upper and lower bounds, right?
Yeah.
And looking for specific problems and solutions. And that's really what we tried to apply to this patch notes that we're going to go over today.
Well, let's begin with some item balance. We're going to start off with 3 items. The blessings, or the ones that are non-conquest specific, so they're available in all the other game modes outside of conquest. We'll begin with Attacker's Blessing. This is an item that, obviously, it's an early game item, but it's a bit too potent has been the issue that a lot of people have complained about, so it's going to get a bit of a nerf this patch. It's going to go from 50 to 100 stacks to evolve this item to get the penetration.
Yep, and so this will be a similar theme through the rest of these non-conquest blessings. Is they stack very, very, very quickly. Within like sometimes the first minute, you can get mostly stacked up. Maybe within the first 2 or 3. We want them to take a little bit longer, and so attackers, which was already really good, is just going to take longer. The other ones are going to take longer, but also have some adjustments to them to help them along.
Well, we'll go through those 2 as well. Then Defender's Blessing, which is more for the supportive aspect of the tanky option. It's going to be increased stacks from 50 to 75, and Evolved Defender's Blessing will now give you health, which is going to be more. So it was 100, it's now going to be 150, and mana was 100, now going to be 150. And then Specialist Blessing, the more of a supportive aspect, a mobility aspect, I'd say. This is now going to get increased MP5 from 10 to 20 and increased stacks required to evolve from 50 to 75. So a bit of a buff and a shift, though, at the same time with those 2.
Slowing them all down. Just a little bit. They're great items.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're playing Arena, should you get these items, Clumsy?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the things that we didn't write on the notes as well is that we've updated a lot of the recommended builds for these blessings specifically. So,
cool.
for example, hunters, mages, as well as I believe assassins. They probably did pick up Attacker's Blessing, and now that's going to be in the recommended item profiles.
Good point. So really, we're trying to make this the starter item, the blessing concept, more clear to all types of players: new players, veteran players, etc., conquest players, non-conquest players. And most of this season, I think these items were a little bit sleeper. Like a lot of people didn't really look at them too much. But the players who played well and played those modes more hardcore were buying these items a lot, and they're seeing how powerful they are. So really, we just wanted to bring defenders and specialists up to the levels of attackers so they all felt universally good. Attackers was really the clear favorite this year. And then we wanted to adjust their pacing just a little bit, just for feels and timing reasons.
Well, there's not really many items outside of the game that, outside of Conquest that get picked up, but those are the only 3. We'll move on to one of the Conquest blessings as well, though. It's going to get a bit of a buff this patch. Warrior's Blessing is on the list here. Increased health and mana restored per trigger from 30 to 40. An Evolved Warrior's Blessing is going to evolve to give you protections, which was 10. It's now going to be 15 at this moment in time. Reason for that, is it just a little bit low compared to what it should be?
It was, I think, widely decided by the player base this year that Warrior's Blessing was just a little bit on the low end compared to the others.
Right.
And specifically the class that goes with the Warrior's Blessing, the Warriors, wanted to be a little bit tankier in the early game and when they evolve those. So what you're going to see is more regen here and more protections. Really just trying to add more diversity to the solo lane and add more power of warriors in the solo lane.
And just give them a bit more of a chance then, because we've seen quite a lot of Guardian's Blessings even on warriors as well, right?
Exactly. So although, this is the only conquest blessing we're adjusting here, we're trying not to hurt the quality of life for supports by changing Guardian's Blessings rules to make it more complicated or more specific, but we want to buff warriors and warriors blessings, and we're making some changes to the map to encourage a more active play style over there in that solo lane. This is just one part of the puzzle.
We definitely have our eye on Guardian's Blessing, but there's a lot of different things that we're going to be going on to here, and we can also revisit, in the next couple months, next couple patches if need be.
Well, we're going to have an entire feedback phase
immediately
after today. I mean, as soon as this show's over, Meepon and Clumsy are going to be running back to our desks to get on Twitter and the Pro Feedback Discord and see the Reddit mega threads and see your feedback. But for now, we don't want to nerf Guardian's Blessing because it will have a specific negative impact on supports.
Okay.
And we want to try to buff solo lane through other means that don't hurt other classes and other roles.
Sounds pretty good. And maybe some of the changes will do that as we get further along. That's it for the blessings, though. We'll move on to relics. There's only going to be one relic change this patch. Horrific Emblem. We're going to be decreasing the slow from 40% to 30% and decreasing the attack speed slow from 25% to 15% too.
Right.
The upgraded Horrific Emblem, however, that will also have the decreased slow, was 40%, now will be 30%. The attack speed slow remains at 25%, and the decreased damage dealt debuff from 20% to 15% overall here. So this is taking a couple of hits, but then keeping some of its identity.
Right. Yeah, I think if you saw HRX, you'd see the prevalence of Horrific Emblem. It was pretty potent. You'd use it, they'd be slow, they couldn't really counter back.
Very popular
It reduced
starting.
a lot of damage. Very popular start. We're just toning it down so it better competes with other relics.
Okay, I'm just hoping to keep an eye on that still, just in case it gets too low down, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I can do it for a relic, really.
We'll see. It still provides a really powerful effect.
It does.
Just in what it does alone. The numbers were maybe just a little overtuned, making it a more clear, obvious choice to win your lane. We want to make sure that Shell, even Meditation, which we've seen has had some popular moments from time to time, not just in the new player scene, as well as Sprint, Wings, Heavenly Wings. We see a lot of different options.
I still call it Sprint.
Of course, everybody does who's old school. But, we want to have a lot of options, especially in that duo lane, where you see a lot of relic flexibility. And Horrific clearly took over in our most recent
When you get
scene.
Evolved's Horrific Emblem at level 1, you know it's probably just a little bit too strong.
Yeah.
So is the thing with the evolutions. Next up, though, this is an interesting.
Here's the spicy
I
one.
didn't think we'd
This
start with
one.
these. These are
I
some
didn't know how
exciting
well
stuff.
this is the consumables.
Oh,
tree,
I'm
is what we're
super
about to go
excited.
into
Right,
here.
consumable.
Elixir of Speed.
Yep.
It's a new item in the game. It's going to cost you 2,000 gold to purchase this. This consumable increases your movement speed by 18% permanently. The effect does not stack with movement speed from boots or shoes. This effect lasts, it says X minutes I've got down here.
It's really long time.
Right, okay. It's just because I don't have a specific time and I just read it.
It's 9999 right now.
Right.
Yes.
Cool. So for 9999 minutes,
It's intended to be
Seconds. Yeah.
Seconds.
It's 160 minutes or so.
this
It's
item is
effectively all the time.
only going to be available in Conquest
That's
game
right.
modes as well.
Right.
So this is a permanent speed boost buff, but it doesn't stack.
Right.
Correct. Clumsy, why don't you get
Yeah.
into more
So-
detail?
Explain the more
What is
details
the
of you,
short pitch for this?
So, I mean, if you guys saw my tweet earlier today, yesterday about the spoiler, this is the radish of the turnip that people were talking about. The short is that this elixir does not stack with boots. So once you get, 35, 40 minutes into the game, and you're sitting on 5 items, you've got your boots, and you kind of just wish you had another item. Well, now you can. You buy this
your
elixir of
boots.
speed for 2,000 gold. You sell your boots, and that's the idea because the movement speed doesn't stack with each other. And then you buy yourself a 6th item, and you go crazy.
This is the boots replacement late game item. So
If you've got movement speed items, though, they're not going to help you, are they?
no.
they will.
Those
they'll
work
still help you,
normal.
but boots
This
themselves won't
so
help
you
you.
could
Yes.
build a movement speed build and effectively replace that boots slot with another movement speed and go faster. But that's not really the intent of this
So
item.
now we get 6 items.
That's the
Now
main
we get
intent is
6
that you get
items.
6
Exactly.
item diversity late game builds. So
Yep.
we had a
Cool.
power buff elixir, we had a defense buff elixir. We wanted to add another facet to the late game, and this is an issue we've tackled before. We tried a lot of different things, but we wanted a little bit more variance in the very late game. This is what it's going to do: is let you actually build a complete 6 item build.
Yeah.
It makes the late
And
game spicy.
The cost is adjusted appropriately because really this potion does nothing if you buy it and drink it for 2,000 gold and your build is normal, right? 'Cause you
Yeah.
already have boots, you just got a speed buff that does nothing. It doesn't stack. So we have to embed the actual cost of replacing your boots.
Yep.
Because
So
you
it's
lose
a little
you
bit
lose
of
the
it's a
stats off
little
the
bit
boots
of
too, as well,
exactly.
don't you?
You do.
Right.
Yes.
Because you've got to buy your boots. You're
Right.
going to buy them anyway. You're not going to have 2,000 gold to just go 18% movement speed.
Yeah.
That's not valuable.
Right.
Technically.
So the other elixirs are 3K. You need about 3K because then you sell your pots, you'll get that additional 700-ish, 568 or something like that.
that's interesting.
Somewhere around
Yeah,
there.
something like that. Then you'll be able to buy at least like a tier 2 item and replace it immediately. Or you'll need to wait until you're about
Yeah.
that 3,500 gold tier at the end game. So instead of getting the red or blue elixir, you can get the yellow one and switch in an item.
That is exciting.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
super
really
spicy.
interesting.
Extra item in the game, technically, in the late stage.
We're very excited to see how, especially in the pro scene, that works out. In the
Oh,
late game.
yeah.
Yeah,
Because we'll see
and-
how many abuse cases we can make.
There might be a few gods, yeah,
Right.
that'll get
Well,
much better with
I'm
this in the
thinking
world.
Rat might actually be hurt a little bit because he's got Acorn.
True.
Oh, good
Rat
point.
no
actually.
We'll have to
boots.
make sure that works.
Rat no
accordingly.
boots can't sell
Rat
boots.
can't sell, but well,
No.
Rat is poised as an early game character.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so
get screwed
when,
right
if
off,
you're in Rat in this late stage, sorry, you're
Good,
you're
because I'm sick
your
of
draft.
Blink Rat at
Yeah.
level 1 anyway. So
And
it's fine.
as we mentioned earlier as well, is that this elixir only exists in the Conquest game mode. We wanted
Yes.
to make sure, it was tuned specifically for the timing that we've mentioned just now. And we found, in other game modes where the spooling was going to be a little bit different, it didn't quite fit there.
Yeah.
So this is only going to be a Conquest elixir.
Because hit an assault straight away, first item.
Yeah, right, or an arena
First
or something
elixir,
in
done.
15
I
minutes
mean, I
or
guess you
less.
could do that.
Probably not a good build.
Quick double check on this. Does this persist through death?
Yes, it
Okay, because
does.
it doesn't say that on there,
It's
and I thought I'd just clear that up.
effectively
now.
permanent.
The permanently part is a
Just
the
to be
really long
super,
duration
super
and through
clear.
death. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
that's correct.
So that's consumables. Next up, we're going to move on to magical items. Most of these will probably be focused towards mages, but guardians also pick up magical items too, so expect some of those in here. We'll begin with Cursed Orb.
Oh,
is the
baby.
first one on here. Is that,
Might
Kind of a
look
new
familiar.
item.
Yes.
is that a new item?
Well, we're gonna have Doom Orb, which is now a tier 3, and Cursed Orb, the tier 2. So these
brought
kind of
back
go
in tier
together.
3.
Yes.
So Cursed Orb is going to be a new item that's technically tier 2 of Doom Orb.
Correct.
Cursed Orb is the old Doom Orb with reduced stats.
So Cursed Orb will be 1,600 gold. 55 magical power, 75 mana, 20 MP5 to 15 MP5. And 3% movement speed. Passive, killing or assisting an enemy minion provides you with 1 stack, granting 1% movement speed and 3 magical power per stack. Stacks last for 10 seconds and stack up to 5 times. Enemy gods provide 5 stacks straight away. Then, we'll have to follow this up with the Doom Orb, because this is going to be a tier 3 item now. It'll cost 3,000 gold for Doom Orb.
Look at him run.
And it's going to be
So
135 magical power for Doom Orb, 200 mana, 25 MP5, 6 movement speed, and killing or assisting an enemy minion provides you with 1 stack, granting 1% movement speed and 6 magical power per stack. Stacks last for 15 seconds and stack up to 5 times. Enemy gods provide 5 stacks. Guys, Doom Orb's been through a lot of different iterations from the early days of Season 1 all the way through to now. It kind of evolved into this. Burst the wave down, use it for rotations potentially and like extra mobility bursts. This feels like it's the same sort of identity, but pushed it a bit further.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
So it was definitely it was really good for what it was. It was this nice bridge item that you could build, but mages really care about the end game power. They really care about where they're going, not exactly where they are at that time. And so Doom Orb, even though it was potent when you first bought it, it just couldn't keep up with other builds as you got later and later on. This kind of changes that. It makes it now a full-fledged tier 3 item that you can pick up. It can really enable some quick rotations. It can really enable you to have like a nice power spike early and then maybe sacrifice it compared to other potential options, but keep up with other builds. So it really kind of gives it just a new lease on life.
A bit more potency, maybe we'll see it a bit more on some of the more rotational gods, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be really strong. In fact, I think the price currently is listed as 3,000. I think we even increased that to around 32 or 3,300.
Yes.
I'm messaging Isaiah right now. It seems like a couple of our
Numbers
earlier, most recent tweaks that are definitely on our notes doc and will be correct in patch notes when they're posted today.
Yes.
But it's still 99999 minutes for...
That's actually intended.
For Elixir,
yeah.
I wanted
I
to
know.
make it the rest
I
of
guess
the match, but I don't have a button that just says rest of the match.
Oh, that's true. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
So we're
that
like,
makes
how
sense.
many 9s before it's obnoxious? I did suggest 3 9s, but Pawn was like, maybe you could play a whole match, but that would fade. And I was like, all right, fine.
That
we'll
is
do 4
possible.
9s
It's
today.
fine. We've seen games go that long.
We've had long games.
But
But,
you make sure we double check some of these numbers.
Yep,
It's very slight tweaks. We did increase the cost on this, so tier 3 Doom Orb is very strong in our
Yeah,
testing.
the extra
This is a
power
really
in it,
strong
tier
item.
3, very interesting.
And it's really fun too. And we liked the passive, but that tier 2 version just really held it back, being forced bridge item. So
Exactly.
there we go.
So that's Doom Orb. Next up, we're going to talk about Book of Souls real quick. This is for the Book of Thoth tree, the Soul Reaver, items like that. It's going to get a bit of a nerf this patch. 65 power, it's now going to be 55. I guess that's to do with how quickly we've seen the rushes of
Book 2 rush
Yeah.
was a really common start,
Okay.
if not the most popular.
Yeah, we buffed Mage's Blessing a little bit towards the end of the year, and we thought that would help bring down the number of Book of Souls we saw, but we
not
think
enough.
it is probably appropriate to give it a small power nerf as well.
And not only Book of Souls, though, Book of Thoth we'll actually get a little bit of a look at here as well. We're actually going to decrease the cost of Book of Thoth from 2,800 to 2,650. The passive now only converts mana gained from items. Ooh.
There you go.
Increased mana of mana converted to magical power from 3% to 6%, and increased bonus conversion when evolved from 2% to 3%. So if you're going to go Book of Thoth now, to get the most out of this, you want to be building items with mana on them.
Exactly.
And it won't affect your base stats like it used to.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
So the real goal here was make this more of a build synergy item and not a catch-all item.
So if you see someone building Book of Thoth, you can go, oh, I expect him to probably be going Book of the Dead.
Right.
And stuff like that, with more
Right.
mana items.
And Math Master Pawn here can go into a little more detail on this one.
Yeah, so basically it was really interesting to try and figure this out because a lot of characters also have different base mana costs. And so you had to take the worst case mage scenario where they had the lowest amount of mana and the highest mage case scenario where they had the highest amount of mana, figure out kind of where things average. And the quick TLDR of it all is if you just build this on its own, is likely going to be weaker than it was before when you built it.
Yeah.
Now, if you build it and you build it with maybe the cooldown boots, maybe you throw a Soul Reaver in there, maybe you throw a Book of the Dead in there, it actually will be more potent, but you had to build those items that sacrifice things like pen or cooldown.
That's true.
Specifically, it was tuned to require you build about 2 additional mana items to equal, although the numbers look buffed here, the way that one bullet point about shifting from items is a big one, is a big nerf. So really you need to build about 2 additional mana items to pair with it for it to be at about the same power it was before.
Yeah.
If you build it on its own, it will be weaker than Season 5.
Okay. Well, continuing in the mage item department, we're going to go on to Soul Reaver next. It's going to get a bit of a change here too.
The one people have been
Enemies.
waiting for.
Enemies that get hit by Soul Reaver's bonus damage will take 50% less damage from this effect on subsequent hits. This reduction lasts 3 seconds and refreshes on hit. So you're telling me that if I spam my whole abilities on them in 2 seconds, only one proc is going to hit me?
Full damage.
Full damage.
full
yes.
damage.
And then the
All-
additional ones are 50%
Yep.
less.
Exactly.
Correct.
Okay.
Soul Reaver was doing some weird things
Yeah,
to
it
the
was.
meta. It was working. The item was working very much as intended. It was doing bonus damage. It was encouraging some gods that had more ways to proc damage on multiple abilities. It was doing good damage against tanky characters, but it was doing a little bit of everything too well. So we wanted to make sure we got a clear nerf in here. And really, what this is meant to do is bring back mages that have less damaging abilities to put them on more even footing than over gods that have multiple. One thing we really saw is that really took over in Season 5.
Yeah, the one-
If you only had 2 damaging abilities as a mage, you were mostly not played, mostly because of just how good Soul Reaver was. And nothing else. So what we're trying to do is make that a little bit more widely applicable to all gods and try to get Soul Reaver back in its real intended spot, which mostly is that counter tank, bonus damage type of ability. We do like even seeing it on some of the Bruisery Guardians. That was cool, but they're going to take a big hit from this too. A lot of the way they dealt so much damage through Soul Reaver was really extended fights, and now they're going to be getting mostly 50% of that Soul Reaver proc most of that fight.
Okay, well, that's going to be the change for Soul Reaver. We'll move along to Obsidian Shard next. This is going to get a bit of a change too. Obsidian Shard is the major pen item, realistically, for mages. Increased cost from 2150 to 2300. However, even though it's gone up in cost, it will go up in power a little bit. The power has been increased from 60 to 70. Gentlemen, reasons.
So the big thing here was that it was just this one item that you could build in a lot of situations and it would be effective. And because of its cost, it really fit into a lot of mage builds pretty easily. There wasn't much of a reason not to go attempt to try it.
Right.
So we're going to increase its cost so that when you go to invest in this pen option, you're really looking at it for what it does, which is shreds a lot of magic protection off a target. But because it is going to be more expensive, we want to make sure it didn't fall too far behind, because it's weird how cost and power kind of correlate, but we brought the cost up, which brought the opportunity of being able to build this item down. We want to give a little bit more reward for finding the situation to get this, finding the situation where you can shred a lot of magic protection off the target and reward you for it with a little bit more power as well.
So in the long run clubs, you play a lot of mages. Like,
Yeah.
do you think you'll be seeing this more so? Or is it going to be situational based on the comps you're against?
I think it's definitely going to be situational. We saw a lot of Spear of the Magus, Soul Reaver, and Obsidian Shard all picked up together. Now, from what we're going to see here is that we don't actually have any Spear of the Magus changes, but we very much believe with the Book of Thoth shift, with the Obsidian Shard shift, as well as the Soul Reaver pretty much straight out nerf, it's probably going to be in a good spot, but we're definitely going to evaluate the pen options. You know, one thing we didn't do in Season 5 is really increase their power alongside the other mage items when we nerfed Broad of Tahuti. So we're going to keep our eye on these. And I think they all should be in a pretty viable spot still.
So some key nerfs for mage items in the most popular, most high-performing items.
Without destroying the whole class as a whole.
But we got to
right?
have a
That's the
couple
rule.
shifts in there, correct? And we're also targeting some really unpopular items. Like Doom Orb, although it was a cool item, really unpurchased. Pretty much nobody bought that item all season.
Well, I think we're going to some of the items we've not seen too much
And that's
of.
what we're
Yeah.
about to get right
about
into.
now,
Right,
too.
right.
Couple more mage items to go. Typhon's Fang is the next one. It's a lifesteal item for the most part. Increased magical lifesteal from 10% to 15%. I didn't even know what it was when I was just reading out what it is.
It doesn't seem like much, but the way this item synergizes with its own lifesteal and
Yeah.
converts it to power, this is a big buff.
So math guy, how much does this work out?
So this essentially reads 10 extra power and like 7-point-something% lifesteal increase.
Okay.
So it's a little bit more than actually just what's listed there. So you can view this item as actually like if we have like 2 bullet points and they're more significant than what's just listed there.
Gotcha.
And this is a similar change to Book of Thoth. We want to encourage more synergy builds where mages are opting into different types of items that combine together well,
Right.
To specialize a little bit more, as to this year where we had a few too many items that were just good on everyone.
Very fair indeed. Next up, Dynasty Plate Helm. The magical power of this item is increased. It was 45. It's now going to be 55. We didn't see too much of it.
Pretty much none, no.
I think we're going to see a bit more of it.
A little bit. We
Yeah.
want to be careful with this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
When
It's a
was
pretty
it,
scary
season 3 or 4, that this was like, you gotta build it
Yes,
every single
absolutely. It
mage?
was very
we
strong.
don't want to go back right to there.
Okay.
So we're trying to take a
Small
little
touches
step,
on
but-
this
So this is like, for those at home that are newer to the game, this is one of those items that gives you power, but it also gives a bit of physical protection.
Right.
As well.
Right.
pen.
So we want mages to
Yeah, a
have
little bit of pen.
Mages to have a good option for if they're really nervous about that early jungle gank, or if you're playing non-conquest and your opponents have to be a little bit loaded up on assassins or hunters, and you
Yeah.
want to make sure you don't fall behind too early. This is a good option for that. You're gonna sacrifice a little bit of true endgame power, but it'd be worth it if you're not 0-6, right?
Yeah.
It's true, but then you don't have to buy boots now. So I'm joking.
Well,
you
you
still
will.
buy boots,
Late game,
okay?
late game.
I just got images of everyone just like, I don't buy boots. I'll just get that 2K pot later.
Well, we were worried about that option as well, but we think it's pretty difficult with the cost. Someone
Yeah,
will probably
it
find
is.
a build path where it
is.
works, but
I mean,
we'll be paying attention to that.
That's true. Stone of Binding is the final magical item on my list this week.
yeah.
Increased magical power of Stone of Binding from 20 to 30. However, it's got a new passive.
It's essentially the same passive.
Oh, okay.
It's
Successfully.
just, you'll see.
You just trick me into saying these words, and then I'm like,
debating
"Oh,
this
you
so
on the
hard.
sheet."
here,
Successfully
man.
hitting an enemy god with crowd control will place a debuff on enemies here. Oh, because the old one used to be
Right.
an AoE aura that would like pulse
Apply
out from
your
around.
We found
right?
this just to be very counterintuitive and actually hurt the way Guardians wanted to use the item.
Okay.
Like, we wanted this item to be a way of, oh, I'm got a lockdown or bruisery Guardian.
Yeah.
Now, hey, team, kill this guy. Or,
Yeah.
hey, team, let's make a pull. So, let's make an aggressive play.
Yep.
So, it used to buff your whole team if they're nearby, but that was some weird positioning elements and also just
Definitely.
confusing and kind of backwards. So now, whoever you CC will also be debuffed.
And the
And that's
debuff,
it. It's that target.
the debuff is going to be decreased physical and magical protections by 15, which is a considerable.
Right. So this is a considerable shift. Like, you used to be able to buff your whole team, and now
Yeah.
it's only one enemy. But in plenty of scenarios, that could be similar types of targets, and now you can move this around between
Is
different.
this definitely more of a buff than like what it used to be? Because obviously it used to give you pen for your team technically.
I think
right?
for
This
situations
is the same
like,
thing, though. This is reduced protections on your enemy.
fair.
For like
that's right.
Geb, if he was going to blink engage, he often would actually blink out of range of his allies
All
to
the
actually
time.
benefit.
And then, therefore, the Stone of Binding would do nothing. In this case, it will still do at least something. So
It works out well with teams that are around you more.
yeah,
often,
and it's got a
right?
little
Right.
power buff here to compensate for this change in overall application. But this should be much more intuitive and clear overall, and should just feel better to use.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's it for the magical items. We'll move on now to the next level, which is physical items. That's
Yay.
your hunters, assassins, and warriors too.
Yep.
I couldn't figure. I was like, yeah, there is 3. What was the
Yeah,
last one?
there are
I've
3.
just not seen warriors. Oh yeah, that's what it is.
Well, we're working on
We're getting
that.
there.
This year we'll find out. This year is their year, maybe.
We're trying.
God, I hope not. Malice is the first item on the list today, and it's gonna have a new passive. I feel like I've been
Number
here since
4 or
season
5?
1 saying that every year.
Might be the 6th.
New passive for Malice. Here we
Sixth.
go.
All right, this is changing it around a little bit. It's been a lot of iterations, but it's
Right.
not quite the same kind of
Successfully
passive it was before.
hitting an enemy with a critical strike will subtract 2 seconds from all of your abilities currently on cooldown.
Yes.
Except for your ultimate ability. This effect can only happen once every 5 seconds. 2 seconds off your cooldown seems pretty strong.
Yeah, it's pretty
Even
good.
if it
Yeah.
doesn't come off your ultimate, like 2 seconds off for a hunter in some circumstances is the difference between life and death and having their escape back up again.
Yep.
Yeah, especially even for like characters like Artemis, getting access to the stim more often is a really good deal. Getting access to a range poke is a good deal. So this is just, it has multiple applications where characters who naturally kind of build crit or want to build crit can get another item that will help them do the thing they do better more often.
And I mean, not even on the hunters, right? If you're playing those assassins, and previously we've tried to shoehorn this onto like the Najaz or the Hanbats, but they'll actually do very good with this change as well. Where they're going to go in, they're going to get that crit and reduce 2 seconds off their cooldowns. That's pretty scary.
Malice has kind of always approached it from a ability and critical strike interaction. And we've tried this passive in a bunch of different ways, and it's been not too successful. Malice has maybe been meta on Neja ever.
Yeah.
That's about it. So we're trying to find a way that it can still be true to its goal, but be slightly more widely applicable. And, we're okay with situational items, but,
Sure.
we generally don't prefer items that are actually only one god good.
Also being different as well from the other critical items as well, I guess
Yes.
is also an issue because you've always got those balance problems with, well, which one's better than which.
So with
and
this
shouldn't be.
being able to get you a quick refresh on another core damaging ability or stim or escape or something like that,
Sounds pretty good.
That could open up some really interesting new critical strike builds.
Cooldown on some of those gods is hard to come by, so I can completely understand that being useful. That's
Yeah.
Malice. We'll move along to another critical strike item. Poison Star is on the list here, but this will be a nerf, boys and girls. Increase the cost from 2,400 gold to 2,500 gold, and also decrease the critical strike chance. It was 20%, it will now be 15%. This was a potent item we saw at the World Championships. It was picked up a lot, and I think that was because how good the passive could be used
Very.
and effective. So
And there was one key thing we noticed in it being picked up a lot was that it was often being picked up without many other crit items. Players
just
were,
that one-off.
Yeah, players were even running power and kins builds and stuff like that and mixing in a poison star because
Yep.
although the proc was a little unreliable at that point, getting it was still powerful. So that's why we specifically targeted the crit chance to be decreased here. So it's a kind of going along with the theme. We want people to make these builds that work well together and have certain items that enable those builds to be even stronger, and not just have things that work on anyone in any random order.
I mean, pros like RNG too. That's why they
they love RNG.
right? They wanna,
They don't like RNG,
Yeah,
but
they
now
do.
you'll need to build more of a real
they do.
crit build to make this item
I
work.
talk to all those pros all the time. They're always asking for more randomness. Like, they really like it.
Also, the 2,400 price cost was pretty low, so
Well,
that had to
true.
help a little
It's
bit.
not the only item in that tree that's going to get a bit of a nerf this patch. Wind Demon's also going to join it in that path. It was. No,
It's
man.
getting a buff,
It's
though.
getting a buff. It was
didn't make you
2,700
say
gold.
those
So many
words.
people
It's
just now.
going to 2,600. My apologies. Wind Demon gets a buff. It's coming down in cost, but the rest of the item is staying the same.
Right.
Is it because it just wasn't?
Just a little shift here.
Because we brought
Yeah.
it, we earlier on the show, I feel like increased the cost, and now we're just blowing it back down a little bit.
Well, we liked the messaging with Poison Star, but we didn't want to necessarily increase crit's overall build cost because it's
Okay.
already very expensive. So we just have a little bit of a shift here. Just
Right.
assuming a lot of people are going to buy multiple crit items, they're already really expensive. We're making one much more expensive, and we intend you to build it with other ones.
Okay.
Let's make another option one cheaper, just a little cheaper.
Well, that's a couple of crit items. We'll move on to some more attack speed items. Now, Odysseus Bow is next on the list. Increased attack speed scaling on passive from 50% to 60%. Wait, we're buffing
Your
this?
chain lightning is
Yes.
going to deal more damage
Yep.
Why?
10% increase.
because no one really uses this item,
Oh,
and it's a cool
baby.
item.
It has some
Oh,
limited
baby.
applications, but it was just that limited. With an extra scaling, it will help it actually scale better in the end game with a lot of builds that exist. You can go the raw attack speed to get many procs, or you can build a lot of power to really make the procs count. It's up to you, but an extra 10% is going to help it just compete with other choices that you have.
This is just a fun item and has such a cool visual application, and you get that audio, you hear that and you just know someone's dropping the Odie bow on you.
Just so you all know, that's a pretty successful 7th item right there that could be available.
That's
in
actually
your
what I was going to talk about.
Ooh.
I was talking with that with Pawn and Playtest just
Yeah,
now. Is that
this
I
next item.
really love. Well, we're getting to it in a second. The Silver Branch bow, the Odie bow, the Atlantas, as well as throwing in a nice chin size in there. But it never felt like you could just do that by itself. But with the speed elixir that's now available, you can actually sell your boots and pick up an item that helps the whole build synergize much better.
Nice.
The one thing about that speed thing we're going to keep coming back to, of like now that you can have that extra slot, is which role is going to end up working out better throughout by having that extra slot. I feel like hunters might get a big push.
It
from
might
that.
be hunters. It could be.
Especially towards late game, which is where you want your hunter
Yeah,
to
that
shine.
would be
in
a
the
good
spot.
We'll see.
Could be a good bunch. We'll find
We'll
out.
see.
That's the experimental phase. Clumsy just alluded to it. Silver Branch bow is next on the list.
Whoa.
Hey,
Increased physical power from 20 to 30. There she blows.
That clumsy
From 20
A.
to 30. So Silver Branch got a bit of a power increase. Why? Was it just a little bit underutilized? Wasn't doing enough?
yeah, no, go on.
So the build itself is just fun. Being able to shoot really, really fast is really fun. But
Sure.
when you did the math on it, when you tried to figure out how it would work, even on characters that could make good use out of it, it just wasn't quite there. Especially because when you first build it, you often don't have enough attack speed to utilize it effectively.
Right.
You're still building some options, and it's hard to build to go this heavy attack speed build without having without it rounding out the damage. It's hard to be like, well, I could just build Odie bow third and I go into an Aussie. Well, I didn't build any power. I'm going to be struggling a bit. So we increase its power some so that you can build it more in the middle stages of the build. It's effective as and put you too far behind. And then as you get more and more attack speed to overcap, it becomes more and more effective.
We saw a lot of power penetration builds this year. We want to see more crit builds with more viable and more variation between them, and we want to see more attack speed builds and more variation between them as well.
To be fair, Hunters, like this year, we saw majority of it was attack speed or pen builds, but we saw some crit, which was very different than previous years where we've always just had one cookie cutter build for the most part.
Well, that's great. That's great that we had a good variation in the hunter builds. A hunter is generally one that people will find a way to make a popular
Oh,
build.
yeah, for sure.
But there's always these interesting items here on the edge that are just so close they might be able to make it and break through
Tantalizing.
to the build, but we're not totally sure. But that's why we're trying to make these a little more attractive and
Yep.
see how they can really shift the meta.
So that was a couple of attack speed items. We'll move on to a little bit more of the warrior assassin items you see a little bit more of. We're going to move on to Runic Shield is up next on the list, and this is going to get a bit of a buff. Increased health. It was 100. It's going to 150. Reasons for that, boys?
Yeah, so this is a strong warrior item or assassin who wants to be a bit more bruisery. It really helps you deal with enemy incoming magical damage, whether it be from the Guardian, who probably has enough power from boots to be mitigated from this, or from a mage who's like just really ahead. But when you looked at the cost for it versus how much health and total effective health it gave you and how much it mitigated, it was on the border, but it wasn't quite there. So we're going to actually increase its health a little bit to make it compete more directly with other potential anti-magical items.
Too situational, still situational, but we want to
situational.
reward the player for buying it a little bit. It's not to the point where it's good every game, but it's. I mean, that aura reduces magical power by 50.
It's
It's
potent.
a lot.
If you've got,
pretty good. Yeah.
You know, mages in lane against you or guardians in lane against you.
Yeah.
And
Oh, especially if it's an early game
right?
lane against you, you can slow down their damage a lot. So we like that, but it was just still feeling a little too squishy on most warriors.
Well, another bit of magical defense item next up on the list with a bit more of an effects. Ancile or Anchile or Anchile.
Anquile
Whatever.
is the
Tomato,
official
tomato. It doesn't
correct.
matter. It's a made up word.
No, it's a
that's not
Roman
true.
shield.
Oh, no, stop. Anchile.
I'm pretty sure it's Anquile.
You just offended
2000.
people.
It was. Sorry, it's an
My
increasing
lore-
cost.
my
It
lore
was
people out there,
2000.
help me out.
It's going to be 2150 now. This is going
Yeah.
up in price.
This was just a
because
clearly
was
powerful.
picked a
item.
lot.
You know, it was
Yes.
funny because this item took years to convince people that it was powerful. We finally did it though. It's very good. A lot of people this year learned how good it is. We're just going to make it a little bit more expensive for you to get all that goodness, that silency goodness.
definitely for an assassin.
Because it's really good.
I mean,
One of them.
This item is
2,000
really
gold
good.
is so cheap for that
it was
position.
ridiculous. I know, but people didn't believe us still.
Yeah, just looking at it now, like 2150 is not all that more.
It was good to see this item finally catch on, though. We were really happy to see that because it's a really interesting item and it allows for a lot of interesting plays and counterplays.
Next up is the Cudgel Tree. When I say the Cudgel Tree, it's because pretty much everything in
It's
that
a bunch
tree is
of
getting
items.
touched
Oh,
here
yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
So we'll start off with the Cudgel. Increased physical power from 5 to 10. Decreased health from 100 to 50. Okay. Identity shifting a little bit there.
Yep.
Shillelagh, which is part of that tree. Decreased cost from 1500 to 1300. Increased physical power from 10 to 15. And then I guess it branches off into... Does it branch off into 2, that one? The
So that one
Shillelagh?
only goes into
No,
Blackthorn.
Blackthorn
Yeah.
hammer. Yep.
Right. But what you're seeing here is a little bit of shift in increased power. These items were positioned in a little bit too tanky of a way,
Right.
Which really hurt warriors in the early game. They need that clear, especially from their basic attack damage. So what we're seeing here is a bit of shift on, and you're going to see this on Blackthorn and Runeforged as well.
Okay.
More physical power to get this better fit on those early warrior builds, and they're still going to be tanky from other ways.
And there you see the Blackthorn hammer on your screen now. That's going to have increased physical power from 25. It's now going to be 35. The passive, though, now transitions from cooldown reduction to mana regeneration at 25% mana, not 50%. I was going to say 50% mana regeneration is pretty damn strong, so it's going to be a little bit weaker.
So this
than
is
that now.
when it
So
triggers.
this is when it triggers from. So when you're
Right.
at 50%, that was the threshold. So it's a 50-50 split. Now it's a 75-25 split.
So
Yeah.
you keep that a little bit more often.
You keep the cooldown a lot
the cooldown
longer,
longer.
and
That's
then
cool.
when you get low mana, you get that mana back really fast, but it doesn't take you up as high as you used to.
That makes a lot of
It's
sense.
a really cool item. Obviously, it hasn't really caught on lately this year, but
good
with
in
these
assault.
types of changes, it actually, I think it has
I'll
a
play
lot
a
of
lot of
interesting
assault. Yeah, that's fair.
applications, but we'll see with these changes. It's mostly a big quality of life and then just that better power to make sure you can build it early as a warrior. Warriors have a lot of good tanky options, but they're a little lacking in those hybrid or damaging options.
And Runeforged Hammer was also in that tree. That's going to have an increased physical power from 40 to 55. So that's a 15 power
Ouch.
increase. And decrease health from 250 to 200. So you lose 50 health and gain 15 power.
Correct.
Once
That's-
again, same identity.
That's a shift in the positive direction. There's a
Yes.
buff and a nerf there, but that's a big power buff for a pretty small health nerf.
Yeah.
And that's mostly because, like I said, warriors have a lot of good options for full tank items, but we want to make sure that when they buy that 1 or 2 aggressive items, they're not just buying one item from the mace tree, just one penetration item. We want to have more hybrid options to get that damage in different ways.
A lot of warriors have a way to actually self-apply CC so they can make use of the passive. More physical power means that pass is more effective. They often have ways to already mitigate damage. So the 200 health is a nice boost, but it isn't necessarily like losing 50 power on that isn't going to stop them from being able to be tanky. So it's good for bruisers.
This is the year, Pod. Runeforged Hammer.
I am convinced it was already
Runeforged
good,
Hammer. Good.
but I'm
Even,
happy
like-
it's getting stronger.
What?
I'll take it.
People don't buy it. Players don't
Correct.
think it's good. We'll see.
That's what you said. Like
We're buffing
the whole philosophy is what people's opinions are. So just
Right.
keep buffing it until they buy it.
I'm all for the hammer
And
build.
nerf
now.
it when they complain about it. Yeah.
Don't worry. We'll keep an eye on the true
Yeah.
stats too.
So
it's still
you're-
within a safe range.
You're bored of items yet? Because we're not done.
Yeah, we're
A few
not
more.
yet.
Just a few more.
I just wanted to see if you wanted
Yeah,
to
like,
Come on,
start
Ginger
off.
man. Keep
Next
it moving.
up, items that go into all classes for the most part. These are generally like aura items, the likes where more defensive. Look at it that way. Gauntlet of Thebes, first one on the list, increased health from 200 to 275. I can back that call. I think it's good. Like, we've not seen too much Thebes as of late. It kind of takes a while to
It was
stack.
really designed as that that core first item for supports.
Yeah.
You can only stack this item by playing in the support style, which is really cool, but we wanted to reward you with extra tankiness for doing that. That was a great idea design that we worked with the pros in the community to make happen. It went through a couple of iterations on balance. It was too strong, too weak, etc. It kind of just settled out of the meta for a while. And people were okay with that for a while, but now as we're looking at the new season, ways to make the support class feel better, we wanted to make sure this item felt good to buy and didn't punish you too hard for buying it and then taking a little too long to stack it. So that's why we went ahead and buffed the upfront tankiness on this item.
Next up is going to be the health tree, Emerald Talisman. First of all, that's going to have increased MP5 from 6 to 10, so a little bit more mana from that.
That's the tier 2.
Is it the tier 2? Yeah, it
Yes.
is. And Stone of Gaia, which is the tier 3 of that tree, increased the speed at which the heal occurs from 10 seconds to 5. Ooh.
Yeah.
And decreased the internal cooldown from 60 to 45. So Stone of Gaia was like an item that got changed and had its passive adjusted a couple of times. It used to be just a really good regen item. Then it had this effect of being able to deal with knockups and like keep you in the fight longer, but it was almost too potent, so we nerfed it, but I think we nerfed it too hard, and now you're bringing it back up.
Well, it was making you immune to knockups. That was when it was a little too strong.
Yeah.
So we took that. We took that out. But then it made the item fall down a little too far. We also wanted to make the item feel better to build into. So that's why the tier 2 got a little buff there. But now the tier 3 also, it's still a counterplay item. You can still get it triggered and heal yourself up. And now you're going to feel that heal a lot more because it's going to be twice as fast.
I'm excited.
So still pick this up against knockup characters, which are, that's a CC that's generally hard to play against.
Yeah.
So you'll still have this option.
Still useful against like Anher Impale, Ares Pull, and things like that too, especially for
Bacchus,
if you can't get CC
Vulcan.
Yep. Plenty of them.
Yep.
I love this health
Xing
tree. I like health tree, so it's nice that it's coming back into fashion again.
There you go.
Shoulda
Speaking
regrowth
of,
in the health tree is next on the list. Decreased cost, first of all. It was 2,100 gold. Now will be only 2,000 gold. And it's also going to have increased HP 5. It was 10. It will be now 15. Same for the MP 5. That was 10, and that'll be 15 too. So this is just getting stronger overall and a little bit cheaper.
Herc and Chalk say hi. They're going to have some fun with this item.
Boy. And there was some Thanatos as well with that.
Yeah.
Pick it up.
Now,
the
check
passive's
that
really
tree.
strong.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to make sure those stats felt a little bit better and the cost was easy to get into. This item has a real high potential if you get it early and really use that passive. So
Yeah, it's all about the
Yeah, and also, while it may not have been, seen in Slimelight in Conquest, it's also really good in some of the other game modes. So we wanted to be careful with that one because in Arena, it's much more popular than it is in
Oh
Conquest.
yeah, mobility is always important in every game mode. I'll tell
That's
you that
true.
much. Spectral Armor is the next one on the list from the all classes tree. Increased physical protection from 60 to 70, and decreased the damage dealt to you from critical strikes from 60% to 50%. Walk me through this change.
it's a 10 power or 10 protection buff and a
Yep.
10% crit reduction buff. 2 buffs.
So it's 2 buffs.
Yeah, the item was positioned as a anti-crit, right?
Yes.
But most people were, even if they're facing down someone heavily crit based, they were still like, I think I'd rather just opt for other physical
Midgard and
protection and
Mail,
health
yeah,
items.
yeah.
Yeah, so we're trying to make this more clear. It's still going to be very situational. We don't expect to see this increase its buy rate to a crazy high level because it's a very situational item, but it's a very important item. It's a type of item that the player base asked for years. They want this crit protection just in case things get out of hand.
I actually appreciate that, especially because you guys have just buffed the crit items in
Right,
this patch
exactly.
too. So like at least you're looking at the other side of the coin of like, well, hang on a second, maybe the other guys.
And just as a core pillar of item balance, we've added some more of these kind of regulation items in there that don't necessarily need to be super popular or super powerful, but they exist, and that helps us if the meta shifts to an unhealthy place
Gotcha.
where things are way overly tanky or crit is way overly strong.
just buff
We
this out
have
of
some
the
of these
park.
items already in the game that are situationally good in those scenarios to bring people down without even additional buffs or changes needed.
True,
They're just, as something else's popularity increases, the counter to that popularity will increase, and then will ebb and flow that way.
That's it for the all classes stuff. Although masks, once upon a time they were all classes, but then they got adjusted.
They're in all classes, but in different ways, right?
Yeah, the masks tree is going to get a little bit of love or attention, is what I should really say here. Lodo's mask, the first one on the list, increased damage dealt from minus 20% to minus 25%. So that's, going to reduce the amount of damage you do. with this
5%
item.
nerf.
And increase healing done from minus 20% to minus 25%. We're nerfing it overall more?
Correct.
Just a little nerf to both of those downsides. We're increasing the downsides. This was
Okay.
clearly the most powerful and most popular of the masks. We saw this become the world's meta item with the
Yes.
Fenrir support.
Sure.
So we like how this is being used. It's cool that people are flexing classes into Guardians, but this one was a little bit too strong and too flexible. Just making sure that downside is a little stronger.
That's fair. Nothing else changed about that. Rangdar's Mask is the next one on the list. And that's going to be increased ability damage dealt from 15% to 20%. This means that both basic attack and ability damage are increased at the same amount. So the description will be simplified to just say increased damage dealt.
Right. We had 2 lines for basic and ability, but now they're both 20. So that just says increased damage dealt by plus 20. Yeah.
And so that should be...
This one was not very popular at all this year.
No.
Not at all.
Very risky.
Yeah. Still very risky, but we want to make sure that that class shift type of goal is still here. And there's some... I really think this item has potential. And I think the people who have found a build for it, and even if it's just something fun they play with their friends or only in certain game modes, it is really cool.
We've seen you play it with Bacchus. We know how
They've
much it hurts.
seen me play the arena or clash or joust ranged Bacchus.
Oh, it hurts.
It's
so much.
assassin Bacchus. It's amazing.
Well, the last item that we're going to talk about in this little section is going to be Bomber's Mask, the file of the masks, would you believe? Increase the physical power of this item from 20 to 30, and increase the magical power of this item from 50 to 65. So just a straight buff if you're going to pick this up, right?
Yeah, this one was popular for a little while. We nerfed it. Now we're trying to bring it back up to a safer spot, but we're watching out for that very dangerous bonus movement speed. So we did not going to buff it there. Unlikely that that'll be a place we'll be looking to in the future. We saw it mostly on junglers for a little while, right, Pon?
Yep. We
A
saw
lot
on
of
junglers
Morgan.
mids rotating were really effective with it.
Yeah.
I mean, the cooldown reduction, I think, was at 20%. And for a catch-all at 20%, that's
right, that too,
way too
yeah.
high. Morgan was
sure.
making very good use of it.
So
So we
making
wanted
sure-
to touch its power instead.
Right.
So make it more usable, but at the same time, don't increase the movement and they'll cool down, right?
Yeah.
Because they're both two things.
The
that-
masters is cool
really
items,
shine.
but they are scary. So we're going to be careful with them.
So that was all the items so far that we've gone through. We've still got today to go through gods and changes to conquest maps specifically. But in the meantime, first of all, we're going to take a quick break and go to John Fitch to break down some of the esports and community news.
Hey, great job over there on the casual set. But over here, we're going to be taking a look at the esports side of things. Finch here, I'm joined by Ovrin, our community manager. We also have Coop here, who does all our league ops. I assume you both are doing well here today because there's a lot to look forward to. How y'all feeling?
Feeling good. I'm excited for season 6.
Cooper, feeling good, yeah?
Yeah, everything's running pretty smooth so far, so really looking forward to the changes.
And we've made some big changes here. So, I mean, if you can kind of walk us through it, if you're someone who hasn't been maybe keeping up with like some of the stuff on Twitter, on the website, just kind of walk through how season 6 is different from what we did in season 5.
Yeah, so it might even be easier to go through what's not changed.
Right.
So season 6, we're kind of revamping across the board everything. The SPL for starters will be everything is going to be played live here at Skillshot.
Right.
So that's the first biggest change. We're going to have all the pro players actually out here live for their games. A lot of them will be actually relocating to Atlanta for the new season, so we're super excited about that. The other big change is we're going from 10 orgs down to, or I'm sorry, from 12 orgs down to 10.
Yeah.
So there's, we kind of looked at the competition last year, and it wasn't at the bottom end quite where we wanted it. I think this should, fix that. And make that competition a little bit better overall.
And we added some really big orgs. I mean, we got Pittsburgh Knights in there now who are partnered with the Steelers. Renegades are over here, which we've worked with in some other areas too. I mean, there's a lot to be excited for just in the types of orgs and sort of what they bring to the table as well.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really excited about the Knights.
Yeah.
I've spent a
Good
lot
roster,
of time.
good org. It's all good,
Yeah. I spent a lot of time talking to those guys. They are so excited to be on the battleground, man. I'm really excited to have them.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of the roster, I mean, obviously, if you want to check out those rosters, they're all on the website and on our Twitter.
Or you can use !rosters in chat.
That
There
too.
you go.
There you go. But
he stays on top.
it's also important to note that we've also removed the region lock for this season.
Exactly.
So a lot of your favorite players, you used to just be able to see European players on, or just international in general, on international rosters. Now you're able to see, Zatman with EU player and really get a different flavor of competition. So.
And it kind of gives you the best of both worlds. If you kind of missed it, there are still some orgs that stayed, the same. Like Splice is still all ENA. Pittsburgh Knights, I think, is all EU. But then there are some other teams that are kind of mixed up. I think Rival is one of those orgs where you've got some from both sides. So if you have some teams you're fans of, maybe they're the same. Maybe you get to see some stuff you've never seen. It's a best of both worlds scenario.
You get to keep a little bit of the NA EU rivalry, but it's
Right.
not like the true dividing line of the SPL anymore, which is great.
And we did some improvements on the SPL side of things, and I think that is how those are going to come out to be. But we've also helped out some with the SML. That's getting changed up a little bit too. Can you tell me some of the changes and just how that's going?
Yeah, so the SML it's kind of been our big sticking point of how do we get the amateur scene kind of growing and to a point that we feel comfortable it can develop talent for the future.
Right.
And it's important to note it's a work in progress. We're still not done. But two of the big changes that we're making is one, we wanted a minimum salary for those players competing.
Right.
So all the players in the SML will be receiving a $10,000 minimum salary, which is well and above what they've earned last year towards the low and middle end. And the second is that we've actually done a similar vetting process similar to the SPL for the organizations in the SML.
Right.
So we're working with some really great partners at the lower level to make sure that scene's a little bit more stable and that they're really putting forth the commitment that we may not have seen in the past.
And it's exciting, I would say, from the community engagement side, because we're going to have all these players here like all the time now, right? Some of the people that you really like, you get to hear more from them. We were just sitting with some of the pros out there in the area, and I assume that'll be happening so much more. I mean, what kind of stuff, I guess, are we going to be able to do more of now with the way Season 6 is looking?
Just more content, you know? Like, when they're here, especially our EU players, you know, you always kind of get the short end of the stick. You're out wherever you are, and we can't do a lot with them. So when they're here on such a consistent basis, the amount of content we're going to be able to put out, you know, we got video content, interviews, you know, we've been in a lot of meetings planning some really good stuff. And I wish I could spoil it all right now, but I won't.
Some good stuff coming.
Yeah, I'd like to keep my job, but yes, there is a lot of good stuff coming up.
And Cooper, even like the way that it's gone has changed, right? We're in the phases now instead of the splits as well. So it's like kind of all the games are going to be mattering. It's not like that spring split kind of slump that we sometimes saw.
Yeah, so we've kind of talked about each league's big changes, and one of the things that's kind of coming to both leagues is you know, we're moving to a more full season structure now. So all the games are going to count. We're going to move to 13-week phase 1, followed by a kind of mid-season invitational break, and then a 13-week phase 2. And again, all those games will count throughout the year, and this kind of puts a little bit more emphasis on the players to really try their hardest throughout the whole year and make sure that when they qualify for Worlds, we truly are getting the best teams throughout the year.
That's right. Yeah, all of it's gonna matter from that first day that you're out there in week 1.
Yep.
You know, so who's gonna be able to get that stuff to matter? And I mean, I know, I guess we can't go too much into specifics, but it really does open the door for us to help you all get to know these players better. You know, some of it on the serious side, some of it even on the more silly side. I think
the memes are going to be so real. I'm so excited.
Yeah. No, you'll get to see so much more from these players than ever before. So, I mean, Coop, we kind of went through a lot of this stuff here on this esports side. Is there anything more that you want to touch on or let people know maybe if they are big fans or don't watch as much?
Yeah, you know, I think two things. One, we didn't touch too much on console.
Yeah.
I think console, you know, is obviously still on our radar. We're going through some planning stages on that still. Some very big changes coming there just in terms of the way that the format's going to run for next season, as well as just overall making it a little bit more of a stable league similar to the SML. And two, you know, I really want all the fans to just, it's a big change. We know that across the leagues. It's a very large change, and we are going to make some mistakes along the way. We know that. We've already made some, and we've definitely corrected those. But if everybody could just, you know, provide their feedback, continue to hit up myself, the casters, you know, Avi over there. We'd love to hear your feedback and continue to make this a really great league.
Yeah, does anyone ever hit you up, Alfred? Anyone ever?
Everybody hits me up all the time. You should see my DMs. Like, they find me on social platforms I forgot I had.
Yeah,
like,
they'll find someone to get you.
In my LinkedIn,
MySpace?
like, hey, codes, please. The other thing I want to mention, because I've gotten a lot of questions about it, SML rosters. I'm not announcing them yet. You're going to have to wait. Free agency has a couple more weeks left to go, but you can expect a roster announcement for the SML sometime in February.
And I expect those to be spicy too. You know, there's a
they're
lot
gonna
of
be so spicy.
A lot of good players down there in the SML that we'll get a chance to see from in that area. And I know that there were some changes to like the way we did global series from last year, right? But the door's open for those players, I think, to still play in the minor league here as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The region lock is gone for the SML as well. So those Latin America and Brazil players, OCE, SEA are the regions we support in the past. We'll still continue to support those players if they want to compete in the SML. And then, you know, throughout the year, we may have some other competitions for them to compete in too. So definitely a big emphasis for them to compete.
All right, well, I want to get it back over to back over to the other team. They got some more they want to talk to on some of these notes. Before we go back over, any more closing thoughts? I guess you guys want to let these guys know about Cooper first, if there's anything more you want to, I guess, add that we haven't covered.
I don't think so. I think everything's good. You know, like I said, I'm really looking forward to the season. The players are all excited. Everybody here is really excited for the changes. We'll have news on some preseason, you know, just kind of what we're doing there and start of the season schedule, hopefully in the next couple days here. But yeah, just really looking forward to it.
Yep, me too.
Okay, anything?
Very excited. No, I think we covered it all.
Yeah, we went through pretty thorough. So if you're not big fans of it, make sure you check it out. All this stuff's gonna be happening right here on Mixer. So just get right back here for all the action that's gonna be kicking off, and we'll get it back over to Hindu and the rest of them for some more stuff on the balance changes in Season 6.
And we're back on the casual segment. You could hear AJ in the background then. Apologies, he's showing off his socks.
damn
I
right
got
they look
bears
cool.
on them today.
What is with you and showing off your socks on?
Because I got cool socks.
He's really proud of them.
Look, they got bears on them today.
Every day we
It's
get a
hard to
daily
see.
report
Yesterday
on
was
what socks he's
cats.
wearing.
Today was bears. Oh, I stepped
It's
on
like one of the
something
most
too. Oh, jeez.
pointless things to get stylistic about because
What,
you never see
socks?
them. Yeah.
I mean, you're seeing them right now.
All right, let's get the
Let's
God balance.
move
Let's
on.
do it.
Hindu,
Welcome
stop
back
stalling.
to the set. We're going to be moving on to God balance next, and there's over 20% of the gods, I said that earlier on, involved in this. We're going to start off with a leak that Pon gave us. Pon, why don't you take this one for us?
Yes, so we tweeted out the spoiler.
What a great
All
spoiler,
warriors
Pon.
have gained. And then that was just great because everyone was trying to figure out what they gained. I like to wait. They just gained. They had
They
gains.
gained weight?
Yeah, they were fitness.
It
It's the
was
plus
all
ultra.
really
Size? So instead it's going to be...
And size.
health. So they're getting a across the board 10 HP at the start of the game, as well as they're getting an additional 3 per level, which is a total of 60 throughout the whole game. And this is really just to make the warrior class more defined and distinct as kind of these bruisers.
Right.
A lot of their stats got really close to assassins in a lot of ways, and they are quite far away from guardians. They really should have that kind of middle ground between the two, and overall they just weren't there. So we're boosting their base HP amount, we're boosting their HP per level.
So newer players, for example, just so they understand it as well, do all warriors have the same health pools and things, or is it like this is 10 on top of what their current is?
Right, they do not have the same health.
Right.
So our classes in SMITE have general guidelines for whether their health, mana, etc.
Yeah.
protections are, movement speed, power, but each god differs. So in this way, we are adding 10 to all warriors. What we did notice is the entire warrior health pool was a little closer to assassins, not as close to guardians. We're moving into that more clear area directly in between the two.
Yep.
Because warriors as either our physical tanks or our tanky melee DPS class.
Yeah.
They are a hybrid class by nature, but we're trying to make that a little more specific, that their tankiness is an intended part of them.
You guys are scary with this year because like we've had a couple of mage item changes.
So we might see some more warrior supports too.
Warrior buffs already,
Yep.
and some changes to the hunter role as well. I'm like, okay, all right. We seem to be
We're
Don't forget
everything.
about that Gauntlet of Thebes buff.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
We will see.
And
We will
Mosin
see.
Carb is going to be the very first god, and hopefully these are in alphabetical order. I don't know if Pom was involved in it. If he was, it probably
They're
isn't.
not- alphabetical. They're pretty good.
I actually remember distinctly organizing them.
Did you? I
believe you
Just in
did.
case?
Yes.
No, he
This
did.
exact
I did
situation
it.
happened.
I see his Z at the end.
Swarm, first of all, for AMC, decreased cooldown of this ability. It was 16 down to 12, is now going to be 15 down to 11, so that'll be up more often. And Honey decreased mana cost. It was 75 to 95. It's going to be 60 at all ranks. Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep.
So
Ooh,
Amusin Cobb is a
spicy.
very risky but high damage hunter in Smite. Doesn't have a lot of mobility, just some speed, which can be strong, but you know it's more strong for rotations and things like that, less from just simple escapes. So he is a damage dealer, and we're just trying to give him a little bit more quality of life here and faster cooldown on his main lane clear ability, and Honey, which is kind of his combo ability.
Yeah.
Which we've been looking at a lot of that for a few other gods throughout the year. These combo abilities that don't do a lot on their own, but are really, really highly mana costed. So that should help Muzinkob be able to unload his abilities and more comfortable.
Definitely helps a little bit as well. If you're going to reduce the cooldown of Swarm, for example, you're going to spam that more often, which means you're going to run out of mana. But if your Honey costs less, then you're going to be okay still.
Yep.
Win for AMC.
He really fell out of favor this year too, by the way. Although he
started strong.
He was an all-star in season 4.
Yeah.
And
Season 5, he pretty much straight up disappeared.
And we largely reverted the things that
The high
Yeah, we
changes.
when we
did.
nerfed him,
Yeah.
he fell off, and then we brought back pretty much all of that, and he still was underperforming.
The meta dictates that he needs more buffs.
Maybe
Therefore,
season 6
we
is
have
his
them.
year. We'll find out. Anubis, another god that we don't see too much of at the competitive level, but he still can be potent, and with the right hands now, you can too, because your CC ability, Moify, will increase the duration of the stun this year. 1.2 to 2 seconds it was. It's now going to be 1.6 to 2 seconds. So early game, this is going to be much more impactful.
Right. So actually, a lot of experienced Anubis players will opt to rank up the Mummify as their second most important skill. Generally after
Some more control.
Right, just because it helps his combo potential of being able to get that wrap 3-4 killing people. So you would have to rank that up. But now you'll be able to actually make better combo plays with just the rank 1 Mummify. You won't be forced into doing that. You can still do it if you want to try some more control-y strats, but
I think you also get cooldown reduction per rank.
you do, and that's a big bonus to ranking this ability. There's still plenty of reasons to rank this ability early, but I feel like we felt like it was a little too forced. Also, just Anubis has been a little bit struggling to get to break into the higher levels of competition. We wanted to give him a buff that synergized well with his kit, but wasn't going to necessarily break him.
Well, that's a buff for Anubis.
It's a pretty good buff.
Well, he's also got Typhon's Fang and things too. So
I'm very excited about
You
Anubis
never know.
in Season 6.
Ao Kwang is next on the list. Yes, we're still in the A's. Ao Kwang, Dragon's King Sword, passive. Is this a change passive? Or
It's a
just
new passive.
It's a new passive. Yep.
Well,
Okay.
according to our community, his old passive wasn't a passive and didn't meet our criteria, and that was true.
Yep.
They called us out and we admitted it and we're changing it.
Correct.
Cool. Dragon's King Sword, then passive every 20 seconds. Ao Kwang gets a stack. As long as he has a stack, his next non-ultimate ability that deals damage to an enemy god will consume a stack to have its cooldown reduced by 2 seconds, and heals Ao Kwang for 5% of his maximum health.
Right.
Successfully executing an enemy god with King of the Eastern Seas will fully charge Dragon King's Sword. This effect can stack up to 3 times. So he's got some sustain in this kit.
Really,
Yep.
we wanted to... So he had just more power in lifesteal.
Yeah.
And it was too directly linked to his ultimate. So what we wanted to do was give Ao Kwang a little bit more sustain power and I guess multi-engage power.
Right, exactly.
Recommit power as well.
I mean,
is what
we're
I saw.
Recommit. Yeah, that's a good way to describe
since
it.
we're getting rid of a lifesteal as well from the old passive, we wanted to at least keep the heal. So keep that components of it because we definitely like that playstyle. And we're going to be using the same UI element as well. He's getting those 3 charges every 20 seconds. We're using the sword as we did previously.
So what you'll hopefully see now is Ao Kwang being able to dive in on a team, unload with a few abilities, reset some of his cooldowns, and then while he's in that stealth phase, look for another venue to attack again.
Or if he gets an execute, it will reset all of them, and he can actually go right back in and start unloading another chain of abilities.
Yep.
Going to be interesting. Ao Kwang has always been one of those gods that can feast or famine, I feel like, most of the time. And maybe he'll feast a little bit more now. We'll see.
We will see.
The next change on the list, however, for all you support players out there.
Yes.
This is great.
I'm
Yeah.
so excited for this one.
I'm excited too. As you can see on the screen, Chug. Chug is now available at level 1 and has a rank 0. So you're going to get this right at the start of the game for free. The rank 0 does not provide any of the protections that Chug would give you, but it does cost 35 mana still. Chug now provides 40% Drunko meter at all ranks. This is a monstrous buff for my boy.
Well, it's mainly just a quality of life thing. You didn't even really feel like you were playing Bacchus in Conquest in the early game because you couldn't do the Bacchus thing. So
Because you rely on the Chug to get this slow on your second ability, the belly flop,
Right.
which a lot of people still don't know has a slow effect on it, and the belch, which obviously it never stunned unless you've got a point to it.
actual just power and percent damage
Yep.
mitigations from his passive. This is
Yeah.
going to make Bacchus' early game much stronger.
Thanks.
And so it's still going to cost mana, and you're not going to get that short-term protection buff that he gets for ranking up Chug, but it's going to give him a whole lot. One of our unique magical assassins. Maybe Bacchus could also be another magical assassin we see in Season 6.
Technically, he now has a wave clear ability and a stun at level 1.
Right, so he should be
Which is
much better in
pretty
the
strong.
duo lane, but I'd like to see this guy take him jungle a few games and see how it goes.
We may see the little fat man there swing to the solo lane too, potentially.
Oh, true. Yeah.
I've heard of that before, trust
Especially
me.
jungling, you couldn't get like Chug at all pretty much if you want to keep your clear speed up.
Yeah, it really was just
that's
an
awesome.
awkward ability for the way Smite has developed. So now, and this, non-conquest, you
Yep.
mostly won't notice this. You could put an extra point in your belly flop or something in those modes too. So it could make him very strong elsewhere, but it's
damage,
mostly going to affect his early game here.
You're right. It's
Yep.
going to be a good change for the Bacchus. We'll see how that works out. Moving along to the next one in the B category, Bastet. on the list, Razor Whip increased physical power scaling from 20% to 25%. Declaw, however, decreased mana cost from 70 to 90, will now be 60 at all ranks. I guess that's very similar in line to what we did earlier on with AMC. Buffs for Bastet overall.
Yeah, so this is actually a 20% scaling increase on Razor Whip because it ticks 4 times. So you're getting a significant increase in damage, but this is really to help her compete with other assassins, both in terms of the actual damage potential, because where she doesn't necessarily have the same burst level, the dot has to tick over time, it has to have the damage come out over time, which just makes it a little bit weaker than the ability that just did that damage immediately. So making sure that it keeps up with those types of abilities, as well as Declaw being on a lower mana cost so you can utilize it more effectively. It helps you be a bit more aggressive when you go to gank. You can actually use Declaw without worrying about being for your next jungle camp clear. Overall, just really nice quality of life buffs for Bastet. Well, more than quality of life, just buffs.
Real buffs.
Absolute buffs. I mean, we did the cooldown reduction buff last time, and we definitely saw, a lot of the community still asking for a mana buff. And, we agreed. Bastet's one of the assassins who really wants to go all in with all of her abilities when she's ganking, and that really requires a lot of mana usage. So I think this is really going to help her out.
Next on the list then, staying in the B category. Yeah, we're still going to keep going. Baron Samedi next on the list, and he's going to take some nerfs this patch. Decreased, on Consigned Spirits, decreased bonus healing based on missing health from 12.5% to 10%. And Life of the Party, decreased total health damage from 15% to 10%. Baron, since release, has been in an interesting spot overall, and there's been some adjustments to him. We've seen him fall in and out of meta a little bit, but I guess you're telling me his sustain was just a little bit too potent?
Well, looking at from the discussion we had earlier, his pick and ban rate is really, really high. Not only that, statistically, he's doing quite well.
In multi-roles too.
Yeah, in multiple roles. He can go mid, he can go solo, he can go support. And he's just a character that had that kind of high frustration. He felt a little bit overwhelming. He was in a lot of games. People were banning and picking him quite regularly. We just felt that he was a bit too effective at both healing his team, especially when they got super low, as well as finishing off targets with that ultimate. Not only are you pulling someone out of position, you're stunning them in place, you're getting max hysteria on them, but the damage on top of that was pushing it a bit overboard. And so we're toning back both those factors that scale off the maximum health.
There's one key similarity between these two bullet points. They are true percent health damage scalers.
Yeah.
So Baron's build does not affect them.
Right.
That's a key thing we noticed, that Baron both of these effects were very strong, whether or not he was squishy or tanky or vice versa. And he's mostly shown up in the highest levels of play as actually more tanky character, as a solo laner even. So what we're doing is nerfing here. This is going to nerf his solo lane a little bit more. Specifically these things that now Baron's really got to decide if he wants to be more squishy or more tanky. He can't just rely on these things to be good all the time, no matter what. They'll just be okay all the time.
Bellona is the next one on the list, and Bellona's Eagles Rally. Increase base damage from 100 to 500 is now going to be 140 to 500. So late game, still the same old Bellona with the Eagles Rally. Early game, this is getting a bit more of a buff in terms of damage output.
So we're buffing all of the warriors, but a couple of them are getting buffed individually as well, the ones who've fallen off especially hard this year.
Right.
Bellona, generally a popular god, this year was rough for her.
Really?
Yeah.
Never
so even play count was, and
further down,
win rate and ban rate as well. So what we wanted to do here is look at her early game engage. This skill is very strong, especially if you can land it and make big play off it. Want to make sure she has that chance to swing those fights with this big ability.
Yep.
And the bludgeon too.
So it has a lot of additional effects, which are good for team fights and things like that. But the rank 1 damage, that's really low for ultimate damage.
Sure.
Yeah.
Really low.
It's
Even
almost
with
a
the
hammer
buff,
swing.
It's still really low.
Yeah.
But we wanted to buff that just to increase our overall damage.
It's got other things like the aura around it.
But it's got a stun and the aura and other things. So we didn't buff this up to normal ultimate damage,
That's
but
fair.
it's somewhere more in between. Yeah.
Right.
Cabrakan, next on the list, is Tectonic Shift for Cabrakan. Expanded the hit area of this ability to damage all gods in the entire rectangle shape in front of Cabrakan. This area is as wide as his walls area is now. Extended the Cabrakan up to the range of the walls. Extending from Cabrakan up to the range of the walls.
It's hard to write.
So basically,
just look at it.
Basically, what you guys need to know is
rectangle.
beforehand, when you ulted with this ability, it didn't catch the whole area that it shows that it looks like it catches, but now it does.
It was in a strange, narrow line T shape or whatever.
Yeah, it was actually just a line. I mean, we even had
The T didn't
arguments
hit damage?
I thought
Everybody
it was a T as
argues
well.
about it.
We
I
thought it
thought
was
it
like a
did, but-
rectangle, and then the very end was another
Well, the
rectangle. and that
targeter
was hard.
highlighted it.
Yeah.
But
So now you can see
now it's
here,
the whole
it's
thing.
just the whole rectangle.
So it shows much clearer whether or not you're going to hit somebody and deal damage to them too.
Right, and you can see that it lines up nicely with the width and the range of the
Yep.
walls.
We've
That's
updated
everyone
it.
in between.
we've updated the effects on all skins for the crack as well to make sure it shows the
You
right
can
area.
see those on the ground, even on the side
Feels
of him.
good.
Actually,
I like it.
I think there's actually a bug because when I was looking in live for this, I didn't actually see any cracks from like his very earliest video. So I think the effects actually never showed for Kabrakan's ulti in the network mode. So now it's in and now it's working perfectly.
Yeah.
Okay then.
Oh, okay.
Fix some bugs, James.
So would you say it's technically a buff and a quality of life at the same time, right?
It's a pretty big buff.
Yeah.
He got to blink in on people, be very close range. He's got to hit his damage all in a row to make sure he kills people because he plays a little bit Assassiny as well.
Yep.
He's a really aggressive Guardian.
Fat
So
Loki.
this
Fat Loki.
being able to hit people on the sides of him is going to definitely help him.
That's Kabrakan. Next on the list is going to be Camazotz. Vampire Bats increase the buff duration from 210 seconds to 300 seconds and now persists through death. So he's going to have his passive more often then, right?
Right. So this is he's a very lifesteal jungle focused assassin. So he has this stacking buff he can get from his ability too, that gives him bonus healing and bonus lifesteal.
Yep.
And it's really punishing right now. If you die with him at all, you lose all the stacks. And
Yeah.
it's really hard to stack it in other game modes because there's less jungle camps and things like that. So that's why we're increasing the duration and making sure that it stays on death. This is like a core part of his kit, and it seems overly punishing for no reason to just wipe that out. If you are a vigilant Camazotz player and moving around and making sure you're keeping it stacked, that's reward enough. We don't need to double punish you for a death.
Very, very true.
Yeah.
Kernanos is next on the list, and Kernanos, we'll move along to him. The Wild Hunt decreased cooldown from 100 seconds to 90 seconds. And Bramble Blast as well. Increased base damage of Bramble Blast from 40 to 200 is now going to be 60 to 200. So an early game buff of Bramble Blast on Kernanos. And of course, cooldown reduction on the Wild Hunt. Two buffs for Kernanos. He's not been in meta as of much lately. He's just pushes in that direction.
Surprisingly low popularity
Yeah,
right now.
it's-
Even after a buff we did a little while ago where he got this polymorph slow
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of Hera.
Yep.
Still,
But it wasn't
It's
enough
very
to
interesting
really
because
bring it in.
I talk to a lot of pros all the time, and they're like, they always say, I love Kernanos. Like, I really enjoy playing him. And then when you see them actually playing him, they don't actually play him in the SPL or anything, but they do enjoy playing the Hunter itself. So I think he's
But
like,
they all
these
said the
little
same
buffs.
thing too. They say, I really like Kernanos, but Bramble Blast
Yes,
feels
but Bramble
terrible
Blast.
So you buffed
at
it.
rank 1.
Yep.
So you
They're
buffed
like,
it.
yeah, this ability is useless at rank 1. He seems like he should be an okay hunter, but this just holds him back. So there you go. Early game
Okay.
buff to that ability is main lane clear.
We'll see if that can affect Kernanos. Moving on from C, we're going to jump straight to F here for Fafnir. Draconic Corruption increased Dragon Breath from 20 to 40 plus 10% of your magical
That's not
scaling
changing.
will now be 20 to 60 plus 10% of your magical scaling. So late game, more fire breath from Fafnir.
This
Yeah.
is an interesting one.
The fire itself was really threatening when he's level 5, but at level 20, he's like breathing on you and hitting like 10 damage, and it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but that's like an evolution of you getting stronger and tankier, and dragons don't hurt you as much.
I mean, Fafnir is a
Right?
really cool guardian. He's got a super unique ultimate where he transforms from a dwarf into a giant dragon and powers up all his abilities and changes his base attack. It's awesome. But he's fallen out of popularity quite a bit. And we've seen him used in the pro scene a lot.
Yeah.
And that's where we had to think about carefully while we were buffing this character, because he has really good evasion. He can leap. He can make himself untargetable and then leap again even further. So he's very good at escaping and chasing people down. Can't buff that. He's also really good at lockdown. He can stun you, transform, stun you again, stun you a third time. He can lock you down. So we have to be really careful with that too. And we all know what happens when coerce, when his ability, he buffs people for their attack speed and power. We can't buff that either.
Nope.
So damage is where we looked on him. The god brings a lot of unique strengths to a team. It's really exciting, but we want to make sure that that late game dragon feels like a dragon.
Feels a little
Yeah.
bit better. Okay, that's Fafnir. Next up is going to be Hera on the list, and Hera's been, pretty potent, I'd say. A lot of people
Very
been
high ban
saying
rate.
she's been around for a bit.
Very high.
Well, it's going to be August, the defender, that's going to get a bit of a nerf here. The ultimate increased cooldown from 70 to 90. That makes a lot of sense, guys. Like, you can get it lowered as time goes on anyway.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yes. So Hera's passive really enables that playstyle where she's designed around having Argus often.
Yeah.
But cooldown reduction combined with her passive, if you're playing well, was already doing the job. It being reduced cooldown at the top end of 70 seconds instead of a standard 90-second cooldown was just too much. It was too available. It was very hard to find downtimes to really engage on Hera. That should be something Hera works towards getting and feeling rewarded for getting, not just something that she just kind of gets for free.
She's got it up all the time, yeah.
Right, and this was a high point of frustration for opponents of Hera's. The goddess feels counterable, and they felt like they could do some good things in the fight, but then just getting Argus dropped on you over and over again was really frustrating. So this is going to bring Hera to a more manageable state for counterplay reasons.
After Hera, we'll move on to Hercules next on the list. Excavate for Hercules. Decrease cooldown from 90 seconds. It's now going to scale from 90 down to 70 seconds in the late game. Boulders for days, boys.
Yep.
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Boulders
Pretty much
really
it, right?
cool.
Yeah, there's
I mean, 90 seconds is quite a long time for someone like Hercules to have that, but
it's a late game
scaling down
damage
makes sense.
potential increase. Like that Hercules tends to fall off pretty hard late game. He's really hard to kill, but he doesn't have that kill potential that he had early game.
Sure.
So we want him to be able to at least use this rock often, which can really scare people and be really good for combo plays with your teammates.
I think it'll also help him a little bit more survivability because CC immunity, right? You can use
true.
it more
Yeah,
often
yeah,
to
very
get
true.
yourself out of
Absolutely.
tricky situations too. That's Hercules. Isis? She released?
Well,
It's
there you go.
Fenrir's
She
not
needs some
released
buffs because apparently Hindu man forgot she's in the game.
It's been a hot
This
minute.
is exactly what we're
I
going
think I
for
saw
right
Wolfie
here.
play one once, and now he's in the minor league, I think. That's the kind of Dispel
Spoils.
Magic. Increase range from 40 to 55. And Circle of Protection. Increase range from 35 to 40. Dispel Magic at that range, boys?
That's a pretty large range.
Well, its thing
That's a long way away.
Isis is, I mean, her wing gust is pretty mobile, but she doesn't have a lot of like quick range damage. Like her spirit ball goes far, but it's very slow, and her wing gust is very easy to see and to dodge accordingly. So it didn't really make sense to us why this ability, this like main control element of hers that makes Isis able to battle other mages, was so short range. It just felt bad. It felt strange.
Yeah, I mean, this one we definitely, there's a lot of discussion in the community about different ways to touch Isis recently, and I think we harmonized on this ability itself. Being able to help team fights and come towards them without actually using your wing gust, but using Dispel Magic is going to be very important.
The ultimate as well did get that change as well in terms of the range.
Her abilities are very good. They do a lot of strong things individually, but there was some bad feels and some weird, like, actual gameplay scenarios where you have this awesome silence, but when you're fighting the other mage, you
Just
literally
that range.
never get to use it. And those types of things we just want to remove from her so we can see really how well she could do.
Okay, we'll see how that works out for her, because as you said, Wing Gust is a pretty good potent wave ability, especially with the basic attacks too. Next on the list is
a lot of
gonna be,
bullet points.
a bit of a list. This is King Arthur, boys
a lot
and
of
girls,
bullet
okay?
points.
So bear with me while I just read through this real quick. General, basic attacks have had a large past to improve functionality and remove jitter players would experience, especially on higher ping environments. Fix an issue where King Arthur would be silenced permanently from Ganesh's home. That's a thing?
Rare, very rare.
Oh, I was going to be like, in my games tonight, do that.
Very
Fix
rare.
an issue where King Arthur could crash players with his ultimate.
I thought that was a feature of it.
Nope. Not supposed to be that strong.
That's a feature for me when the game's going bad. That's what that is. Fix an issue where King Arthur could speed up player animations with his ultimate. Seeing that happen. Fix an issue where basic attacks could proc item effects they were unintended to.
Yep.
Fix an issue where Excalibur's Fury could stun targets behind King Arthur. That should be a feature. Updated the camera on Excalibur's Fury to provide better vision while airborne. Updated the camera on Excalibur's Fury for enemies to be less jarring. Then,
Fixes.
on top of that, here's
So
the
those
fixes.
are all fixes.
Well, they're all fixes. Then we've also got some balance changes. Twin Cleave / Bladestorm. We're going to increase the energy gain from these from 1 to 2 points per hit. And Sundering Strike, decrease the charge range a little from 16 to 12. Now, obviously, Pom, when this guy first came out, this is a lot of corrections to someone because we put a lot of tech into this god that we've not done before. And things are going to go wrong and not go correctly all the time, unfortunately. But we've got most of these ironed out now.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting tech decisions and design decisions that need to be made for King Arthur to kind of make him work the way he does.
Sure.
And that had some unintended side effects. Some players, especially in higher ping environments, were having really negative experience with the basic attacks.
Yeah.
Because they have like lock on and force charge. We're really focused on trying to resolve those things. And you also note that as the first balance pass for him, he doesn't have that many balance adjustments. And it was interesting to watch the community kind of play Arthur, figure out what was going on with him. the initial reception was he was really, really strong. People did number crunching on him, felt he was overpowered. And then community perception shifted to being that he's actually underpowered. And what we've seen is why he doesn't perform well when players first get their hands on him. He slowly does rise back up as players. He's a hard character. He has combos. He has a lot of hidden mechanics. There's a video where people are using the basic attacks to avoid other people's basic attacks. Those are things that really push his skill ceiling up. And so we want to let people actually experience that, let people go through the learning process rather than try and just buff him and make him potentially a nightmare once people do learn him.
I think the one change I saw most is like it felt like he didn't have the real ultimate up, these big powerful ultimate up as often. So increasing the amount of energy again is probably going to be a good push in that direction.
We learned some very interesting things from this character.
Cool.
One thing is that players need to recognize that just reading a kit on paper does not give you the full experience. Sure, maybe some abilities where we just say line projectile and you can get in a good idea of how it's going to hit, whatever. But for King Arthur, his abilities just feel different, and they have different, very different ways that you have to use them and to actually connect hits. And that's one thing we've learned as a design team, that the way at which an ability is fired, its speed, its size, its projectile type, all of that, and animation timing affects the character in a huge amount, in a balance, in a meaningful balance. I'm talking points of win percentage for changing very slight things
Just
there.
small things.
That's one thing that players, when they're just reading it quickly or just making a gut reaction, do not consider. And in Smite, it matters a lot. And we've seen that proof positive in King Arthur. And the other thing is really interesting is kind of watching this learning curve for a new god. We've never really seen one as extreme as King Arthur. Just sharding the god's performance per day, he has increased a huge amount.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes. Generally, that doesn't change that much on a god's entire first 2 weeks. I mean, it always increases a little bit, and we see this for every god. Mastery 0 is the worst win rate, and then it slowly rises up through 2 or 3, and then it levels up and oscillates a little bit. Some gods are a little bit steeper than others, etc.
But then I guess it also made it more complex with the couple of issues he was having too. So those being cleaned up, we may get a more.
But he's just a fundamentally different character, and that means that his ability numbers can be different from other gods, and it's okay. And his controls will be different from other gods, and that's okay.
Speaking of unconventional gods. Loki is on the patch notes this week.
We're buffing him.
Base stats.
Don't confuse them. He's nerfed.
Decreased damage progression from 1.5, 0.5, 0.5, 1.5 damage to 0.75, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 1.5.
So those are basics.
Damage. They're the basic attacks, you know. Here's the big one. And say goodbye to
the basic attack is the big one.
We'll never see him ever again. Oh, I think the mitigations is the big one.
I disagree, but go ahead and read it.
Okay, Vanish. Removed the damage mitigation from this ability. Yes, you will not survive longer with dots on you because you can turn invisible and not get pulled out of stealth anyway. Die, you scumbag, die!
You'll see this when you get the write-up for the notes, but Loki is a fantastically different character in Smite. Maybe that infuriates you, maybe you love him.
He's designed to be that.
But he's very different. And a character like that thrives when they're just outside the meta, right? We want him to be just on the bottom point of balance where he is not completely bad, but he's good when you really learn and really commit to his playstyle.
But
this year, we saw his stats skyrocket to scary levels. That's why these nerfs are pretty heavy-handed. His win percentage, play rate, and ranked and ban rate are all the highest we've ever seen in the history of Smite. And it's not even close.
I mean, there was one
really high.
There was a college kid that we've never seen him play well before in his life, and he won a world championship because of it. So it just shows.
So
you know?
That 25% scaling nerf on every first hit of Loki, that is a huge nerf. That is effectively on the Loki combo where you alt basic, poison basic, vanish basic.
Yeah.
That's a 75% nerf.
I do appreciate the nerfs. I do have a feeling though that there's still, when new players come in, they're still going to experience the same old Loki issues.
A little bit. Well, we're
right?
refusing. Players need to learn how to protect themselves against burst.
That's true.
You need to learn how to hit your CC immunity. You leap away. You hit your beads and Aegis. That's okay. But
at least buy beads and Aegis
this was to a level which was very difficult to ever counter, even when your reaction time was very high.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And it was just frustrating. A lot of times the community would look at his kit and say, "This is obvious bloat to me. This character doesn't need this mitigation. It's already hard to hit him while stealthed.
Yeah.
Loki's not taking that much damage while stealthed, realistically in most games, right?
Well, he has movement speed. He has decoys to block things. He has his ult if he needs to really get out of a situation.
He can't be revealed. So
Yeah,
why
use
does
those
he need
tools
this
to
as
avoid
well?
damage, not the damage reduction.
We want players to feel rewarded when they do hit Loki during stealth because it's hard to do, and it's cool when you predict him and hit him and stuff like that. So now that mitigation is gone, so better feels all around for counterplay.
Next up, more targets towards more solo lane gods, because that's where you kind of saw Loki. Osiris, a warrior with some more love. Sickle Strike, increased base damage from 60 to 260 will now be 70 to 270. So 10 at all levels, I guess that. And Spirit Flail, increased damage, base damage from 75 to 290 will now be 80 to 295. So 5 on that and 10 on Sickle Strike as well. Combination, just more damage output.
Yeah, so he is a character that really wants to get on a target, use Spirit Flail and the one to really just kind of rack up damage over time. I mean, we've seen what like small damage increases to warriors can do. This is also in addition to Warrior's Blessing being potentially better. This is also in addition to him getting additional health overall. And that bonus damage is going to really help him brawl where he was struggling.
Key thing for me is Osiris is relatively low cooldown. You have to hit ability after ability after ability, really rack it up. So these small damage increases can have a big impact.
Yeah.
And you should be rewarded for that. It, like I just mentioned about King Arthur, it's hard. Maybe you're an SMITE frequenter and you're great at this game, but it's hard to hit every ability every time over and over again.
Out there, right?
It's hard to hit them. And things like this, you should be rewarded for these good plays and hitting a lot of things in rapid succession.
Pele is the next guy on the list after Osiris, and Pele, Everlasting Flame, decreased the duration from 4 to 6 seconds. 4 to 6.
Decreased
duration from
6 to 4.
From 6 to 4
I mean, my sheet says 4 to 6, but 6 to 4.
No, yeah, that says that. That's wrong.
This is the life I live, right? Because I get it wrong, and I'm
That's
like, oh, I'm
probably
sorry.
my bad.
It's 6
It's
to 4
alphabetical,
seconds.
though.
I probably typed that wrong. You can blame
numerically
blame
correct.
Ajax on that one.
Decreased duration from 6 to 4, and decreased power from 2 per level.
Right,
1.
because it used to give 5 plus 2 per level, now it gives 5 plus 1
Decreased
per level.
power from 2 per
That's a
level to
lot
1.
of free power we're taking away from her.
Yeah.
This goddess has had a lot of success, and we want to look at these very specific situations, right, Clumsy, where players were able to completely turn around fights with this ability. And that's kind of what it's intended for, but it's too extreme.
Ice Ice Baby did it well.
Yeah, we saw her at Worlds, but finally, we only saw her, I think, 2 or 3 times. She had a pretty average win rate, even right now in live. She's a little bit strong, but she's also not overwhelmingly strong at all. It's the perception of, she's a very pub stompy assassin.
Yes.
So when she wins early and she wins hard. Or she goes to the late game. Right? She's very Thanatos-esque. That's who I compare her to the most.
Highest banned god right now, I believe.
Interesting.
Therefore, Nerf's a must.
I would not have guessed that. I would have thought it was elsewhere. That.
No.
Huh. The more you know. That's Pele. Poseidon is the next one on the list. A bit of a change for Poseidon here. Base stats increased physical protection per level from 2.2 to 2.6. He's just a little bit tankier as our little.
Yeah,
he was just way off the stat distribution.
Absolutely. Right?
Like,
He was
He was lower than everybody for no apparent reason.
By a good margin.
by a lot,
Was that probably from the old days of
Legacy
when you saw so much
change,
mobility with
most
Trident?
likely.
potentially.
I guess.
Most
And
likely.
honestly, this is probably a good spot to give a shout out to the pro Discord as well, because a lot of these changes, we've had discussed with them. I know this is one of them that was on there that we definitely agreed with. A lot of items, a lot of gods discussion we have on the pro Discord, and I definitely want to give them a shout out.
Pros do a good job of helping us find these very small, detailed interactions and things, and they're not necessarily like specifically targeted towards pro gameplay.
Yeah.
This change is not necessarily. Maybe it will. I mean, maybe it will make Poseidon slightly better against a jungler at the highest level, but this is going to affect. This is going to help players of all skill levels, of all game modes. This brings Poseidon to a more reasonable mage within the range of mage stats.
Another mage on the list here. Thoth.
Oh,
is
here we
gonna be
go.
The next one. Why are we saying so much?
I've got to sit up straight for this one. It's like
Because we're
This
going
was a lot
to
of
end with the
discussion.
gods with a couple big ones, so let's get into them.
Don't be scaring me here. All right, Hieroglyphic Assault. Increased damage from 40 to 120 is now going to be 45 to 125. So it's a 5 increase on Hieroglyphic
per
Assault.
shot. Yep.
Per shot. Evade and Punish. Evade and Punish no longer stuns, but pierces through enemies and roots the first god hit and slows every other enemy hit. The root and slow last 1.5 seconds at all ranks, and the slow is 30% at all ranks as well. Final Judgment, the last thing to note of here as well, increased scaling of the ultimate from 100% to 120%. Boys, toss me in through the mix a little bit, because he had a stun, he didn't have a stun. No, to be fair, he didn't have a stun, then he got a stun, then he had a slow, and now he's got a root, and now he's got a root the penetration with a slow. Why? What's going on?
Well, Thoth is a difficult character to balance. We'll just say that. He's a difficult
Artillery
character
mage,
to
right?
play.
artillery mage.
we often saw him with extremely low win rates, like really low, and very, very high pick and ban rates. Right. Players were largely unsuccessful with him, but feeling okay about it, but people were very unsuccessful with him. And I think finally towards the end of Season 5, player perception and reality started to align, where everybody started to realize this god's not very strong.
Right.
He can still be frustrating, but he's not very strong. So we were looking at what are the safe ways to bring up his strength, particularly rewarding him for hitting those long-range skill shots, and how do we also reduce his frustration? Okay. Exactly. So that's where we got rid of the stun. The stun is no more. Now you have a root. So if you're another long-range mage or hunter, you can fight back against Thoth while he's trying to combo you. Maybe he'll still deal a lot of damage to you with this combo, but at least you can fight back the whole time. If you've got a leap or a dash, you can just dodge it. You can use a lot of movement abilities while rooted in Smite, which is great, because that allows more counterplay against Thoth as well. But we needed to bring up some of his other damages as well, because the god is doing record low damage and very poor performance across the board right now.
Definitely interesting feedback on Thoth, that's for sure. And the one thing that you're going to get as well, boys and girls, if you don't remember, this will be up on the PTS, and there will be a chance for you guys to give feedback to the...
Well, first we're going to have the discussion phase.
Yeah,
so, I'm sure...
Still get a chance.
I can't check the Discord right now, but I'm sure there's pros right now, a whole thing about things, and we're excited to go check that. And we're really excited to meet with all of you, all players of all types, Arena, Silver through Masters. Come talk to us tomorrow and tell us how you feel about these changes, and we'll give you more information about our thought process on some of them. We'll give some more information on maybe the stats and the metrics of the characters and why we made our decisions, and change our minds.
Perfect. I didn't mean to go on to that segment yet because we've still got Zeus.
One more god, but
the final god of Season 6 is going to get an adjustment here to start, Season 6. Zeus, Aegis Assault. Cooldown has been increased from 10 seconds to 12 seconds. So that's the disc you throw for those at home. Detonate, that's the trucker horn, which is my favorite name for this.
What?
After calls it the trucker horn, and it's like
just because that's how he feels like when you strike people.
No, because you pull it.
Yeah. The animation. I like that.
Detonate, I like that. Increased damage from 55 to what? Increased damage?
You'll see. There's other nerfs. There's nerfs.
55 to 135. It's now going to be 60 to 180. So base damage goes up. Increased magical power scaling from 18% to 25%. Reduced multiplication for each charge from 1 to 3 will now be 1, 1.7, 2.4.
Right.
Correct. So the top end comes down, but the bottom end goes up.
So basically the base, the bottom end goes up a little bit. The base is valuable. The scaling actually ends up outpacing the change to the multiplication. So late game, as you've built power, you're going to be a bit more effective with that. And that goes overall through the last change.
The last change.
But there's a whole kind of thing to discuss about Zeus once we get there.
Lightning Storm is the final ability here as well, which we're going to go through. Adjusted the damage from 120 to 200 is now going to be 100 to 220. So early game nerf, late game buff on that.
Right.
But it's also got increased magical power scaling from 50% to 55%.
Correct.
So break Zeus down for me. What is all that going to do to him on a layman's
This is a
level?
tricky one.
Yes. So overall, Zeus's initial ability to deal damage to other gods, his wave clear is largely the same. You throw out the shield, you auto attack the shield, and that is the same.
Sure.
But his overall ability to deal damage to other gods is toned down. And the reason for this is in other game modes that aren't Conquest, he is a monster. If he gets a few early kills,
the best god in the game.
I think on I have a spreadsheet for all this, but I think his early damage was like 790. Like if you just conservatively, you got like a chain lightning and you got like 2 things of your ult, you did a lot of damage to the target.
Oh sure.
And you threw your shield on them. And that caused him to snowball games. He was very frustrating. It was hard to deal with him too, because even if you dodge the shield, you go onto him, he'd pop his ult on top of you. His base damages were so high that he could build tanky and be effective. So these are changes targeted towards helping him in other game modes feel like there's more counterplay option. To offset that, we have given him increased scaling,
right? Which
should mean that if you are going the more kind of damage build, if you have your team to protect you, like you have your Geb in Conquest, or you have your Kepri that can revive you, you can be a bit more greedy with your build and be rewarded for it. So hopefully this will give him a bit more identity as a late game mage in Conquest, but also helping him out in these other modes where he was causing frustration.
So we're adjusting him in the early stages, but his late game could be even more potent.
He'll need to build more power to do the same damage.
Okay.
To put it simply, he'll need to build more power, and therefore he'll be squishier.
That's fair.
Because current Zeus is actually strange in that he has very high base damages and low scalings across his whole kit. So we shifted that a little bit. We also, a key change here is the Aegis Assault. Although that ability might deal a lot of damage on its own, it's his core enabler for his entire combo. And that left him really, really narrow windows to counterplay him. So by increasing that by 2 seconds, he won't feel like he always has the shield up. So he's always guaranteed a bunch of free hits on you, which was a frustration factor in playing against him. So although there's a lot of complicated buff and nerf shifts here, which you've seen on a couple gods today, unfortunately balance can't always be very simple. Like let's just increase one thing, one
we tried to
number.
make this simple and it wasn't
This
gonna
is
happen.
tackling a complicated problem where the god is bad on conquest, good in other modes, frustrating to play against, but still can feel weak in some cases. So when you have these complicated scenarios, we have to make a couple shifts to look at a couple different problems.
Well, that is it. Not for the patch.
We still have one more whole
Just
section.
for the god section.
Oh God, what time is it?
This is what I've got left. You see this bit?
What time
this
is
is
it?
all these pages left, right? We'll be back for a little bit more of this in a second, but for now, John Finch is standing by with a couple of pro players to maybe talk a little bit more about what they've seen.
All right, let's get a little bit more of an esports look at what's going on with some of these balance changes. Finch here, I have two of our pros here with us to talk some about just what you can expect from Season 6 esports, some of the changes as well, I imagine. There was some pretty cool stuff that we just got to see, and just a little bit about what you're expecting from the season. So again, I got Venenu here with me, Kiki, so cheeky, and he is indeed cheeky. I've been hanging out with him. It's a good name for him. I guess just tell us, and I'll ask you both, just what team you're on, how long you guys been playing, just a little bit about yourselves. We'll start with you, Kiki.
Okay. I'm on LG
Yeah.
currently, and I've been playing since SPL.
Yeah, come a little further forward. They want to hear you, Kiki. Yeah.
Okay. Should I repeat?
Yeah.
I'm on LG, and I've been playing since SPL started.
Yeah.
What was the other question?
Your support for LG, this team, Ryan, you've been here since SPL started. That's about it. Yeah. You've been around for forever, it feels like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Same for you, Ben.
Yeah, I'm currently on SSG and previously was last year, and I started getting into competitive in Season 3 for Team Allegiance, for a Hunter.
That's right, mid laning now, though.
Yeah, mid laning now.
And just complaining about mid all the time.
Physical OP, man.
Well, Hunters are good. You're not wrong. Well, I guess, we just saw all these different changes. What stuff kind of stuck out to you all? And I guess you can tell a little bit if you think it'll impact, how it is for Season 6. Anything stick out for you, Kiki, from some of those changes to like gods and items and that sort of stuff?
Bacchus.
Yeah, he's got the chug at level 0, right? You don't even have to put a point in it now. How much does that help Bacchus in the support role?
Well, that helps him get 20 magic power with his chug as well, so he's just gonna be destroying everyone.
if he gets it all the way up, right? If he gets the meter all the way up, yeah. So I'm excited for some of Bacchus' stuff. What about you, Vin? What kind of stuck out to you?
Probably the Thoth change. The Thoth change kind of insane. It's how it was previously when he first released. It was a slow, and then it's currently back to that, but now it roots, and it's actually gonna be insane because I can already imagine it around Gold Fury or Fire, where you can like 2 right through the wall, and like where on Chaos side when you're coming through from the blue buff and the back camps, coming right there, I can see a Thoth right now just shooting right through it. Oof, it's gonna be a rough one.
And my understanding is it hits beyond that as well, right?
Yeah.
So it might be more damage for that.
You can hit 5 people with it. It's gonna be interesting. And then the ult finally can one shot again, possibly. I don't know.
Got that increased scaling on it, so we'll be doing
20% more.
Seeing a bunch of Vin Thoth then. That's what you're telling me, right? Ban Thoth against you. Auto man against you. Well, we heard Vin said he's going to play some more Thoth. You're going to play Bacchus?
And Kabrakan.
And Kabrakan. That's right. Kabrakan got the Tectonic Shift change, so now it's wider, and you're just doing damage in a bigger area now, too. Yeah. So
you're gonna full chug and jump on me and I'm gonna die.
One
like
shot,
it's sundered, dude.
Are you
Double
gonna-
sundered and jumped on. Like,
you're going to go to the dual lane at all? You're just going to go right and bother Van in mid lane, I guess.
I'm sticking to middle.
gonna get double sundered and die.
You're going to go mess them up then? Okay.
Yeah.
So Season 6 is also getting some changes just to the way the whole Pro League is going to be happening. You guys are going to be here at the LAN for all the games now. Even the phases are different from the spring split. How much do you think it's going to make a difference, I guess, for you guys and having those changes in the way the whole SPL is going? Or Vin.
I think it's gonna affect a lot of the teams, to be honest. Some teams might be better on LAN. Some players that maybe like choked on LAN or had nerves are gonna get much better because as time like progresses and you're more used to like a LAN environment and stuff like that. Obviously not playing in front of fans, but you'll probably get like more used to it. And like people like the anxiety and have trouble, with a LAN environment are probably gonna get better. And being with your team, you're more used to it. So like trust goes up. Synergy goes up. And then just being able to talk to everybody and everybody in the league kind of really good for the league because then everybody becomes like closer and stuff like that. And then having EU and NA mix, then strats are going to be because usually there's an NA meta and EU meta.
Right.
And then once the LAN comes together, then it's like whose meta is better, right? And then now it's going to be mixed. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I think maybe some of the NA EU mixed teams are going to be pretty good, but.
That's right. Are there any maybe rosters or anything that you're looking forward to? I guess as dark horses or anything like that, or maybe any changes that surprised you with like where people ended up on their teams or anything like that?
I was pretty surprised with a lot of the teams, just the way that they shifted. But I think everyone picked pretty well. SK.
Yeah.
I'll say SK.
That they kind of like stuck together. I guess the new SK that was Trifecta, or that they all stuck together. Their team could be good, I think. What about you, Vin? Anyone that you're looking forward to or keep your eye on?
I got LG, dude. LG's going all the way.
LG.
All right, let's go.
LG's winning Worlds, dude.
They certainly.
I like
well,
that.
technically getting second because you have to get through us first.
Okay.
Right, you guys will be
We'll
first,
see.
obviously. Yeah.
Sorry,
Bacchus.
Yeah. So
Well, I'm looking forward to watching a bunch more from you guys. Thanks so much for coming in.
Yep.
There's going to be some changes to the Conquest map. One of those changes is the Gold Fury. That's
Dude,
exciting.
it's
so
kinda
we
crazy.
got a cool video for that coming up. We'll go ahead and give you guys a look at what you can expect from those changes.
Whoa, dude, what's all that?
It's all the gold I got from killing the Gold Fury.
I want some.
Nice gold, but where did you get that red buff?
Defeating the Gold Fury gave me increased damage to jungle camps, so I had no problem grabbing this on my way.
Man, you rock.
Cancel that.
Did they hear me?
6 seasons.
Man, you rock.
And we're still doing content like that, boys and girls.
That's like the
Welcome
good
back
old days. All right,
to the show, to the
Final
final
phase.
part of
Let's-
today's show, which is going to
We
be
can do
all
it.
to do
let's do it.
with Conquest updates to the map.
Please don't read this whole next part for me.
Yes.
Please don't read it.
It's,
Speed read it if you want.
Please don't read it
I would
like
like
that.
to see you try, but don't.
Please just let Ponix
So
play
first
it.
thing that's going to happen here is the first thing we're going to talk about is kill bounty adjustments.
Yes.
Overall, these are going to be increasing, is what you
Applies
need to
to
know.
all game modes.
This is all game modes, not just
Yes,
Conquest.
this is all game modes.
Cool. So all game modes, kill bounties are going to increase. Pompon, break it down real quick. What's the be all and all? You get more
So-
golden experience?
The TLDR is the way the kill bounty works and
Right.
the gold bounty works is when you kill a player, it takes their level into account.
Yep.
And it takes into account the difference between you and the player that you killed.
In skill.
No. Potentially.
I'm
no,
joking,
in
sorry.
level. So if you are lower level, it would multiply your, like, let's say you're 4 levels below your target. It would actually multiply this value by like 0.4. If you're 1, it'd be 0.1. What we've done is we've increased that for in the situation where you are killing someone higher level than you. So that formula basically is just cranked up. So now if you kill someone who's higher level than you, you're going to get more for it. You're going to get more gold and you're going to get more experience.
So it's a reward for comeback, basically.
Yes.
So it's a little bit of an anti-snowball mechanic.
Right.
It's specifically meant to make people feel rewarded for getting those tough kills, getting those shutdown kills.
Yes.
Like when someone is really fed on a team and you kill them, the increase is not that noticeable right now, so it's going to be a little bit more. It's not anything crazy, but you will feel better and you'll get better rewards for killing a player higher level than you used to. And we did not change it in the other direction.
Yeah, so if you are a higher level and you kill someone lower than level than you, the new formula would make it so you get like 0 experience after they're 4 levels less than you.
Oh, interesting.
We haven't done it for them though, so they are.
Right.
It's going to follow the same old formula.
Okay.
But that's kind of the difference in intensity that players who are lower level than higher level versus.
So
higher
the
level
only
killing lower
thing that
level.
people need to worry about is that if you kill someone who's higher level than you and a bit of a spree, you'll get more reward.
Correct.
If you're that player at a higher level killing the lower levels, don't worry about it. Business as usual, boys, keep going.
And that's why we said don't read this because the formula is going to be listed on the
Right.
patch notes. It's
Yep.
there.
Read it on the
highlights
patch
the
notes
things
And
that
if
are
you're
different.
getting a little fed,
The
don't
jargon.
get too greedy because you might make a comeback.
Sounds good. Next up on the list of changes, is this for Conquest only?
This is for Conquest only.
Correct.
Game start time. Now, normally at the start of the game, there's quite a bit of a downtime, which was there for reasons before, but it seems they're going to be lowering that down. Start of the game is something we have toyed around with before. It's always been on the longest side for Conquest, but we're going to be shortening that. Do we know how long we're going to be shortening it to? I don't have numbers
Yes,
down
it's
there.
right there.
Oh, it is
Yes.
there?
Oh, we
I
didn't
don't
put it
have
on
that
here.
either,
We
that's
put it,
fine.
I know. I got
Cool.
Isaiah to put that
We
in
got
last
it.
second. That was my bad for missing that
Thank you,
typo.
Isaiah.
So it's down. Does that look correct to you, Clumsy? Clumsy
Meetings
does
now
think it's
spawn
correct?
45 seconds after the game starts, down from 1:30.
I believe it was 1:30.
Okay, right. I think we moved it down to 1.
Moved it down to 1.
Yes.
It is less.
right, so we got
Apologies
the-
for the graphic, whether it's correct or not. What I will do is make sure that you guys get the information
But there's a
correctly.
key element to go along with that, which
Yes.
is now you will get essentially the Pyromancer buff everybody will have at the start of the game. So you can get out of your fountain faster.
Oh, really?
You'll get
Yes.
and this will be an intended speed buff everybody gets when they first leave lane. So we have less downtime.
So if you want to do the early invades and setup strategies that you've got with the downtime, now you still can because of the movement speed, right?
Exactly.
I mean, sure.
But the
yeah.
game starts quicker.
And this, this will, yeah. I mean, you can't use this in combat.
No,
Yeah,
sure.
so it'll fade, but you can get
You can get to different
create-
places
Get
faster.
into different
Yes.
positions. That's what I was meaning.
You can.
The same
So the
position
idea is
now.
to speed the whole thing up, but we want to still give you around the ability to get to the same places, but
That's good.
faster. So less time and more speed. Shift that. All in all, a good, fun feeling and a more active start.
And that is only before the minions spawn, you get that speed boost?
Yes.
Or is it like when you leave the fountain, do you get it again?
Well, when you first go into the game, it's a 1 minute 30 seconds until the 0 timer, right? So
Right.
now it's going to be 1 minute, and for the whole 1 minute, as well as another 15 seconds afterwards, that speed boost will be there.
It'll give you a little bit of leeway if you're late to the match or.
Yeah.
I wonder if there's going to be some uses of
reconnecting.
like waiting in base for minions to spawn and then using
Possibly.
speed boost
I
to
mean,
get there
we've
as
seen
well.
in a couple playtests where some guardians go out, get some early wards in, and then still get back to base and have that speed boost.
People
twice.
could do that already, though.
Okay.
Like,
People could
And
do
it
that
does-
already. This
it
will
does
help with that.
fade when you
little
and
bit.
you have
combat.
less time. So
What's the reason for that? Just that there was so much downtime before the start?
it was just getting old. Now
That's
we
fair.
know the map. We mostly wanted you to have more time because it was a completely new map, like completely new.
Okay.
So we wanted to give people time to learn. Now people have mostly learned that. We don't need that extra time. But we want to make it fun still.
Well, we're going to move on now to one of the bigger changes this patch. We talked about the solo lane a little bit and some of the changes there. We're going to start it off then. We've talked about that. New objective, Totem of Ku. Did I say that right?
Yes,
That
that's
is
right.
correct.
Now, the Totem of Ku is going to be located behind the Fire Giant by the solo lane's middle entrance. This objective is a neutral structure, not a boss monster. It's going to have base health 750, physical protections of 15, magical protections of 10. Health increases by 250 each time it is successfully taken. Spawns at 1 minute in the game. Respawns 1 minute after it has successfully been taken. And despawns at 15 minutes in the game.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, one quick amendment on that. The base health is going to actually be around 300 on
Okay.
the start, not 750.
We still have a whole week of discussion
Yeah.
and a
Sure,
whole week
about
even
the
until
numbers.
PTS. Some of these numbers, and when we jump in games, some of the visual feedback will not be completely finished.
So it's a neutral mob that you can't kill, but you can take.
So you're basically giving it
doesn't deal
damage as
damage.
a tribute.
Right. So it's just going to take damage from it.
You just attack it.
Yep.
Then, once you have secured this for your team, once active, the first team that deals enough damage to the totem will have all of their tower areas empowered. Allied gods that step into the empowered tower area receive a buff. The buff at the moment I've got down here is 5% movement speed, 25 MP5, plus 25 gold to each team
That happens
member
as soon as it's killed.
when it's taken.
Yeah.
Okay. Buff lasts for 10 seconds when leaving the volume, and empowered tower area lasts a minute. So after you take this objective, if you secure it, it spawns in the first minute, and once you've secured it with enough damage, your team will get movement speed around your towers, MP5 around your towers,
Yep.
and your team all gets 25 Gs each.
Yep. So we just saw
There
that
you
right
go.
now.
And as
Okay.
you can see, it's got a cool little meter, a material that grows up it as you deal enough damage. And then when you successfully complete that, everyone on your team will immediately get the gold, and all of your towers will get that glow area where you can step into it for bonus movement speed and mana regeneration.
All your towers, your phoenixes as well.
So really what this is cool is it allows the solo laner to carry other lanes. So even if your duo and mid are struggling, you can win solo, or you can have your jungler make more rotations over here to help you win solo and help take this objective to help your other lanes.
So it despawns at 15 minutes, it says here as well. So I'm just trying to work out the maths of this. Like, technically, how many times could you technically win
I mean
this?
15, but that's impossible really because you need some time, so more like 14 or 13 times.
Yeah, 14 and 13 is your optimal.
Well, no, I guess you have to cut that in half because it's 1 minute
Yeah, so a
on.
minute
And-
despawn as well, right?
No, it's if you kill
So
it
active and
immediately
then it
off
spawns
cooldown,
again.
it's 1 minute and then it resets again. So if you kill it immediately perfectly over time, you could get it 10 plus times.
Okay.
It's no one has done that in playtesting.
Yeah, we
yet.
don't see that.
I'm
No one
sure
has
the
done that.
fans at home will find a way to get 10, and I'm
You're
excited
really
to see
gonna
it.
have to hyper clear that wave.
But this is one of the things you guys have been looking at for Season 6 in terms of trying to adjust the solo lane, of making it not a let's just sit in lane.
We're trying to promote active
Until
play.
25
So-
minutes.
And
yeah.
this is a completely new objective.
Yeah, Caps is showing it off over here is that it's not the first person who finishes the objective. Each team has their own gauge that their own damage amount that they're trying to fill to. So right now Caps is switching between the different teams because you can't just kill steal this objective. You actually need to do the full damage to this objective to secure it for your team.
Okay, so you can't just walk in last hit and go, no, son, I'm
Yeah,
going to
exactly.
do this
Each
now.
team has to deal the complete amount of damage, and they just get to choose their time. It's a race. It's a real, true DPS race, as if it had 2 different health bars.
Pon, do you feel this sort of objective over here will bring junglers over here more often too, potentially?
So I think it really just depends on what you want to value as a jungler. Right now, you can go to help your soul lane if you feel like that's going to be valuable. You can go take their blue. This is a nice thing to take on the way. I don't see it being something that I necessarily want to go there all the time and go take. But if I'm over there, it's a nice bonus thing that we can go for. I think this really is for the solo laner who's winning, who's pushing up their opponent. If they're going to play the passive playstyle, I'm going to get some additional benefit and share that benefit with my team.
So in theory, I mean, if you get the 10, right? If you secure this 10 times and you get 25 gold each time,
250.
You were giving each of your teammates 250, which means solo lane can make a really big impact.
That's a lot of gold.
Or just individually.
So we wanted to give you
right?
something small here. One key thing is we didn't want to just directly snowball the solo lane.
No
so
XP.
that's just giving it more
No
XP
XP.
is really dangerous.
But it shares.
Like when we had the old days of fire elementals and things like that. That just makes the solo laner snowball real hard. Here, this buffs the other lanes, and it does two things. It gives them a little buff up front with the gold bonus, and it gives a tactical advantage. So you can actually, if you're pushed under your own tower, you get some bonus help there. If you make some rotations and you make that smart play to rove through your tower on the way, you can make some other plays. We're trying to keep a theme of the Season 5 changes is to not just give people in a conquest match just plain flat stats for objectives. We want people to have to make plays and make decisions based off of their tactical advantages they've gotten.
Good
That was kind of something we've said about, well, that was something that was the goal behind the Pyromancer and the Oracles as well.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving people, oh, now you just deal more damage to all your enemies forever, like Fire Giant buff again. We wanted to give other tactical advantages, more unique ways to win Conquest.
And talking then, we can move on.
I actually did have one thing to say because that area as well. Before in Season 5, there was actually 2 gaps in the wall there for solo lane. I did want to just make sure for we also have only now 1 gap by the Totem of Ku area, which does change the dynamic of the solo lane.
So the entrances and exits to the solo lane are different geographically now.
Yes, exactly.
Because it was 4 before?
It was 4 before.
1, 2.
So
So
now it's
3.
3. Okay. So we lost one of those areas, but at the same time we gained the totem.
Right, it's more in the center of the lane.
We talked about a couple of other things too. We're going to move on to them now. Gold Fury changes. Now, this is going to be a big one because there's going to be 2 additional Gold Furies added to the game. Not at the same time. Don't worry. It's not going to be that wild. They're going to be on a rotation, from what I understand, between this. The new 2 additional forms are Oni Gold Fury and Mayan Gold Fury. The first spawn will always be the base Gold Fury that you're used to, know and love, and each spawn will randomly be chosen from the other 2 Furies, and it'll avoid repeats. So, for example, if you get Gold Fury at the start, it'll be Oni or Mayan next, and if Oni comes up, then it'll be Mayan or Gold Fury. It won't be going back to the same one again. Let's have a look at some of the artwork for these, and this is the Oni one. We'll break down the Oni Fury first of all. The Oni Fury provides the following rewards. On the next round of minions spawned, all minions in all 3 of the lanes will gain bonus damage increased to 150%, bonus health increased by 50%, physical protection increased 50%, and magical protection increased 60%. To break that down for me, boys and gents, what is the fire minion situation? Is it a fire minion wave that? Is like a fire minion's different to those in terms of stats?
It's empowered minion waves for sure.
So it's different, yes.
It's definitely different.
It can stack on fire minion waves as well.
What? So a fire minion wave
you get empowered
could be coming down the lane with this empowered... You what?
Yep.
We just finished a playtest where we did something close to that.
No way.
We did finish a playtest just now where there was actually a lot of these Oni minions that were taking down the Titan.
So to break down those stats a little bit more for the fans that don't know like the base stats of a minion wave versus a fire minion wave, right? Where would these fall in terms of like the damage output and their push power? Is it as stronger than a fire minion wave, equal to a fire minion wave?
No, they're somewhere in between.
Yeah,
So
they're not
fire
as
waves
strong
are
as a fire
really
wave.
tanky.
And they get true mitigations, which in this case is going to be more powerful than the flat.
Fire minions do.
Yeah.
So this can technically be used as a combat mechanic, technically be used as a game ender when you can't get through the siege because we've got fire minions in one lane, but we still can't secure it. Let's just empower the minions through this.
One primary goal of this change, besides just making the Gold Fury a little more interesting, was to give the Gold Fury more meaningful changes late game.
Right.
So this one is very impactful late game.
Oh, for sure.
And you'll see the other one has a more impact to the mid to almost late game, mid to late, whereas this is like late to hyper late still. And this one's good all the time. Gold just itself is mostly only good early.
Right.
And at a certain point, it kind of becomes useless. That's pretty late in the game before it becomes
Especially now with
useless.
speed.
But yeah, and you still want to prevent the other team from getting it too. So there's applications, but now there's a little bit more to have them applications late game, and you'll still need to make plays. So just spawning this wave, not necessarily going to do a lot on its own.
Yeah.
You got to make plays to go make sure you push that wave.
Okay.
Kukulkan's still going to kill it with the tornado unless you're there to protect it and help use it to push.
That's interesting. I'm interested to see how that's going to work out. The other New Gold Fury, but it's not a Gold Fury because that's the Gold Fury. There's an Oni Fury and a Mayan Fury, and the Mayan Fury is the one we're talking about now. Mayan Fury looks a little bit like that, and you could. I really like that.
I think we've gone with Primal Fury as its main name.
Yeah, I think
You know what I mean?
forgot to update the text on this one.
So
That's
this guy's name is the Primal Fury. So we've got the Oni Fury and we've got the Primal Fury,
Okay,
which
not
is,
mine.
I mean, it's very much a theme that we're going for with some of these changes as well. With the Totem of Ku, you know, it's a Polynesian totem.
Yeah.
We wanted to add a little bit more
All the other
emphasis on the
pantheons.
other pantheons. So we've got, you know, the Japanese Oni Fury, we've got the Mayan Primal Fury.
Okay, now this Primal Fury then, or Mayan Fury is going to say the patch list for now. The Mayan Fury provides the following rewards on killing. All gods on the killing team gain 5% increased damage to jungle camps and bosses. And this stacks. Is this permanently?
It is permanent.
Stacks up to 3 times. So if you secure 3 of these, your whole team is getting 15% bonus damage to jungle camps and to Fire Giant, another Gold Fury.
So
yes.
Oni gives you
What about Furies?
lane advantage, Mayan gives you jungle advantage, and gold gives you gold.
And gold gives you advantage.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and what you can actually see here, we actually added some pots as well into the geometry, and those will indicate, yeah, thanks, Caps there, and those will indicate the permanent buff. So right now, you can see that one team has 1 stack of this buff.
Is that what the pots are?
Yes.
And we also are going to be, the Gold Fury itself will show you which, as soon as it's killed, you will see the icon there, which will let you identify what the next Fury is going to be.
So the players are going to actually know why
You'll
it's
need to
coming
go
up.
check at the pit to know.
Sure, but like they could walk up to the pit and go, "Hey guys, the Primal Fury is coming up next."
Right.
Yes.
And then be ready for that. If you
And
wanna
your
get
team might be like, "Oh, I don't really care about that one. Like our jungle Fury is fine or whatever. Let's pressure Fire Giant side or something like that."
Okay.
But some people might be, "Oh man, Oni's up and it's late game and we have Fire Wave. If we get an Oni wave maybe with Fire, this would be huge for us. Let's make sure we go check that." And you can make different plays.
I mean, it stacks up to 3. 15% is a huge. I mean, 10's still good if you can get 2 of them.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not going to be too bad. And then longer games there. So that's the Mayan Fury. Now, Gold Fury changes overall. Just want to go over a few things real quick. These Furies provide decreased gold rewards. Also give unique bonuses to the team who slays them, obviously.
Yep.
The decreased base gold reward on a Gold Fury would be 150 gold you get. You're only going to get 115 gold for killing these ones. You're also going to get decreased gold increase per minute of these. The Gold Fury would be 6. These are going to be 5 that you get per spawn. And their XP reward is consistent with the Gold Fury, however.
Correct.
So they're going to be worth less gold, obviously, because it's called the Gold Fury. But the other Furies will have those effects and give you less gold.
The other 2 are worth a little less gold.
But the experience stays the same.
Yes.
Correct.
Between the 3. That's all on Gold Furies. Okay. I mean, I'm excited to see how those work out. And the RNG. Could you explain about the RNG, by the way? Like, why was it selected to be RNG?
It's calculated RNG, so there's a 50-50, so you get no repeats.
Right.
We discussed this a lot internally. We still might evaluate the idea of doing a scripted order, so it's always 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's possible as well. But we wanted people to have to identify and make decisions around what's spawning next.
It's still not too bad because of the fact that you can just go up and see it. Like, if you just spawned and we didn't know, and then you're like, oh, it's
No,
the
you can
one we
tell
don't
as soon
want,
as one
you know?
dies, the
Yeah.
whole time it's dead and respawning, and while it's alive, you can check any time to see what Fury it is.
Cool. Moving on then from the Fury side back to the solo side of the map a little bit more to the Fire Giant is the next on the list, and Fire Giant has had a couple of changes too. Fire Giant and Enhanced Fire Giant will now use Magma Pool. They're back.
Yes,
They are
they're
back.
Familiar ability.
They're a little different, but
There
they're
will
back.
be a 1-second warning deployable under each god in the area of these magma pools. After the warning, the area will become damaging magma.
Yep.
Yep.
Don't read all that.
I'm not going to read the next bit, but that's actually the combo of like what to dodge.
This is how it attacks in order. Yeah.
Yeah.
We listed
Why
all.
why are we telling people that?
Oh, why not? We
That's
like.
the fun of them learning of like dodge, duck, dip, dive,
So
weave.
we
right?
listed
Like,
out the
don't tell
full
'em.
Fire Giant attack rotation to show you when he'll use the pools, and this is something we still might be making some changes to, but
Okay.
we're cutting out some attacks to make him sure he uses the pools sooner.
So pools will be put into the kit alongside the other abilities he already had. Enhanced Fire Giant, however, has had his base health increased. It was 6,000. It's now going to be 7,000. And the protections of the Enhanced Fire Giant are also going to increase. It was 90 to 50 to 120 to 75. And I guess that's magic physical, right?
Yeah, magical physical, and the big thing there is the base might look low. You might be like, well, Enhanced Fire Giant doesn't have 7,000 health.
It starts at 0, right?
Well, it has a base value, and then every minute it gets more and more and more. That's just the base value of it. It will
Gotcha.
still, when it spawns at 25 minutes, it'll have the amount of health it gained over those 25 minutes.
One really important thing here as well is that he's also going to be visually enhanced as well. So currently he enhanced at 25 minutes the fire giant, but we don't have a good way of showing that he's a kind of a different fire giant, right?
Sure.
We've updated his stats. We've also updated him visually, as well as the buff that you're going to get, because fire giant's rage, I believe, is the enhanced fire giant buff. It's going to be a little bit more purple tinge, a little bit more Tartarus tinge, as well as the fire giant himself. He's going to have a little bit of a glow to him too.
You'll see him actually having a purple glow across his whole body to make it clear that he's enhanced.
Other thing I've got another here. Enhanced fire giant base power has also increased from 130.0 to 150.20.
Yep, the 20 magical power. So the way he gets more damage on his abilities as he ranks up, he actually gets magical power, and his abilities scale from magical power. So that's essentially just a way of he does more damage.
Okay.
With his abilities.
Now, Pawn, we also have a buff.
There's the magma pools.
There's the pools.
God,
They're
pools
back.
And as we remember, there's one per god that's inside that area, right?
Yep. So and it's caged, so you can't just like spread it out.
Yep.
Just to double check, will pets still trigger that?
Pets will not trigger that. They
No, we
should not
took that
trigger
out.
I know, but
If they
you know,
do,
with the
then
tech
it's
coming
staying
back, I want
out.
to make
Yeah,
sure,
we're not
that's
reverting
all.
that rule.
Before
So
people start
there's
asking.
one more bullet point on here about the enhanced fire giant buff for killing him, which we left off these notes.
Yes, that's right. The
Spoilers of spoilers, interesting. Go on, boys.
That was a mistake. This should be on the notes. We'll make sure it's on the notes before we put them live in the actual patch notes. But we buffed the enhanced fire giant, his health and his scaling and his damage, but we also buff the buff you gain from killing him.
Oh, really?
We're trying to increase the end game, the speed at which you can end a game after slaying the enhanced fire giant. This is hyper late game.
Okay.
We increased it to interact with structures a little bit differently.
Yes.
It's going to make you deal a little more damage to structures than it used to, and
Okay.
structures deal less damage to you as well.
Ooh.
now with the enhanced fire giant buff, you will ignore some of the backdoor protections that are on towers and phoenixes. So that means if a minion wave dies very quickly, if you don't manage to get the Oni enhanced buffs, you can actually stay inside the structures and actually deal a little bit more damage than that 50% mitigation that backdoor protection usually prevents you from.
Gotcha. And that'll be in the patch notes after the show.
Yes.
When it fully comes out. Okay. That's it on the fire jam. We still got a couple more things to go through. It's going to be jungle balance overall here now.
Don't read it.
Don't read it. It's a
Just
lot.
let Pawn explain it.
Explain to me why we're going through these numbers here. What's changed in the jungle overall?
So quick TLDR is we want to keep their level 1 roughly the same, but as they progress through the game, people's builds generally outscaled their health.
Right.
And so you got to a situation where even without Assassin's Blessing, you were just throwing an ability at a camp and it was dying.
Yeah.
So we are giving it more health per level so that it's going to keep pace better with characters or God's damage. As they get their build higher and higher, as well as we've also given them base magical protection. They had no base magical protection, and so that let some ability users really like excessively kill them too quickly.
Yeah.
So now they have a little bit of base so that they're more reliably tanky across like all the different gods in the game.
These are kind of mini objectives in the late game.
Yeah.
And when we're watching pro play and stuff like that, fights can break out around them. And when they die in one hit, nothing fun really happens around them,
It's
right?
just I was too late.
Yeah, so now we want to see that more often. And that's why we're going to buff them in the late game, make them a little
And
more
that
tanky.
affects small harpies, large harpies,
It
buff
affects
holders,
every jungle camp.
buff minis, oracles, and the Gold Fury?
The Gold Fury had some adjustments made to it. Those are separate,
Right.
Really balancing. Those changes are largely towards just making sure its difficulty curve was appropriate. There are some cases where it wasn't getting enough protection so that people could solo it effectively. Its damage didn't really scale with the game, and so like there's a certain point where it just became unthreatening completely, where it should have some form of threatening. Like it should be able to threaten players at all stages of the game.
So the base level, all those jungle balance changes are telling me that like as the game continues to progress, these camps will try and scale
Yeah.
to
Right.
stay consistent.
Should
Okay.
just feel better across the
Yeah.
board. They really feel super squishy right now, especially when the mid-late game.
Yep.
That's jungle balance. You can read all the information of all those exact tweaks on those
Yeah,
numbers
small
there.
harpies, large harpies, buff holders, buff minis, oracles, gold fury. It's a lot of balance changes.
Yeah,
sure.
That we don't want to read all the numbers to right now.
I'm used to it at this point. It's fine.
Yeah.
Towers and phoenixes is the last thing I've got down here. These structures now have a visual effect on them if backdoor protections are currently active on the structure.
Yes.
Yay!
It's finally time.
Just to help people understand that system a little bit better, there's a little like beams of energy rising
Cool.
up around the tower.
So you can tell whether it's got backdoor protections there or not.
And you see when minions come in, that'll go away.
And we did actually make one other change to this functionality because it had a weird rule around it, which was if minions come into range and you're in range and fighting it, backdoor protections drop. If all minions died, the backdoor protection would stay dropped for a few seconds. Now it'll actually stay dropped as long as you remain in combat. If you're willing to commit your health pool to trying to kill that, it's going to stay down until you actually leave. and then once you leave, it resets.
Yep.
Okay.
So, and that'll all be visually conveyed. You'll be able to see that little thing at the base. That's to indicate it has backdoor protections. When that's gone, you can deal full damage to it.
That's a big buff in a weird way.
You still have to push a whole wave there
Sure,
and
but
be there
a
at the time.
Guardian
You
gets a
can't true
minion.
backdoor.
If a Guardian gets a minion into the tower range, it goes, all right, guys, I can tank it now. We've got backdoor protection removed. That's a big boost to pushing down towers, right? Okay.
Yeah. We have some other small visual updates, as you'll see. We'll be bringing out those more. We'll show a little bit more of that as we get closer to the PTS patch. We'll be showing that on social media and the updated patch notes. Like, we're doing season 6 in a bunch of pieces, right? So we still have Q&A tomorrow. We have another show. So a lot of our visuals aren't completely yet. Like we also have an indicator for the Oracle Ward.
Yeah, we have an indicator for the area of the Oracle
indicator
Ward.
for the exact radius of what the enemy can see.
Yep.
Or the ally can see when you take that ward. So you can kind of sneak through the Gold Fury pit more effectively now because you know where not to go to be seen, which is really fun.
There's a brazier by the Pyromancer now that indicates when a team has the Pyromancer buff, because currently there is no way of knowing whether that buff is still active for enemies.
Similar to the torches by the Gold Furies.
Yep.
So
Wow,
we're adding a bunch
helpful.
more stuff like that. So keep an eye out for that as we get closer to launch day.
So, with everything we've got through today, that is it for what we've got on items, gods, and map changes.
We did it.
Gentlemen, though, you guys tomorrow, right, are doing a Q&A.
Oh, we're back?
Yes.
I believe.
Yeah, so tomorrow...
How is this
we're back.
Q&A going on tomorrow? Just so people at home know what's involved and how
We're
they
going
can
to
get
hop in
involved.
a stream room. We're going to be looking at chat and things you liked about today, disliked, things you want to know more about. What the heck were you thinking when you did this?
Explain more
We
detail,
want to
yeah.
explain that. We want to show off our reasoning.
Yep.
And we also want to maybe look at some possibilities of changing a few things. Maybe the way the notes written today are not set in stone.
Sure.
Nothing is perfect.
Yep.
Balance is an art. So if we want to talk to the community, talk to the pros, talk to players, experts on certain gods, certain experiences who can share information with us to push us in different directions, we're going to be open to that too.
Okay, cool. And that's tomorrow, 3 till 5.
And there's
Same
one
place,
more
same
exciting
time.
thing tomorrow that we're also going to do. We're going to go into the details of Merlin's ultimate.
Yes, that's right.
You're going to show that tomorrow?
We're not going to show it.
talk about it.
Talk about it.
Yes.
Because Merlin has been, we gave a little bit of information that he's a unique stance changer with 3 stances.
Yes.
We've seen the thread where people were trying to listed hundreds of different ways
Yeah,
which
it's
we
pretty
could
exciting.
make this stance changing different. And I think they did finally get somewhere
They
on that
got
list.
one very, very close.
Was at least very close, if not correct. So we want to talk about that, reveal that, make that known before we show off Merlin next week on the final 6-1 patch show.
PTS, you said, is looking at next Tuesday. Hopefully next Tuesday. Is that correct?
It'll most likely be after the patch show next week, yeah.
Cool.
So
I
as
just
soon
wanted
as
to
we
make sure
show the
again so
final
we can
content
review.
and everything, then we'll be able to go right into it.
Perfect. And then they'll be on the PTS for about a week, 2 weeks, we were saying.
Right. And if we make any balance changes just from the discussion phase, we'll bring those up next week.
Gentlemen, pleasure. Our favorite things about season 6, on at least in terms of item and balance so far that you've shown us.
Goobus buff.
Of course it is with you.
The hammer build. Just
The
double
hammer buffs, yeah,
Hammers
that's
and
Black,
hammers.
exciting.
Blackthorn hammer and Runeforged hammer together is quite a bit of tankiness and offensive capability. It's nice.
Oh, the elixir of speed. 6 true items. Things are going to change in the late
Yeah.
game.
That is exciting.
The solo lane objective is really new and completely different. The way it's like tracks damage is different than any objective, so we're excited to see how that works. Might use
New
that design in
Furies.
the
I mean,
future.
there's actually a lot here
There's
to
a lot of
digest.
exciting stuff
A
this
lot
year.
of changes, boys
But
and
I'd still
girls.
pick Goobus.
You guys, though, send in all your feedback to us as always. And make sure you tune in tomorrow and ask any of the devs your individual questions. For now, though, that's it for today's Patch Note Show. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks a lot for tuning in, as always. And we'll see you again very, very soon.